to the 9/11 War Room, a weekly roundtable discussion that takes place every Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Tune in at 911warroom.com.
Welcome to the 9/11 War Room. My name is Gene.
My name is Sandra. Today is Sunday, May 24th, not the 23rd, and it's episode 236.
All right, let's get rolling. We are going to, Ted, he's going to join in here about their...
No, he's here.
I mean, he is here.
Oh.
But he's going to be talking about the report that they just put out, shared on behalf of somebody else about the expert linguistic, yeah, how about that? On that word, analysis cast out on We Have Some Planes radio transmissions attributed to Mohamed Atta. But we'll get to that shortly. Let me motor through the news first. Episode 236. Starting off with the news, House unanimously passes 9/11 coin bill to fund Memorial Museum. It says, as the 25th anniversary of the September 11th attacks approaches, Congress is moving to ensure the National September 11th Memorial and Museum has resources to sustain its educational mission. The House passed H.R. 1993, the 25th anniversary of 9/11 Commemorative Coin Act, on May 19th under a suspension of the rules, with 415 members voting in favor and 0 opposed. The House resolution directs the Treasury to mint coins commemorating the 25th anniversary of 9/11. The coins serve a dual purpose. They honored nearly 3,000 people killed in the attacks, the first responders who rushed toward the danger, and those still dealing with 9/11 related illnesses, while also generating funds for the 9/11 Memorial and Museum's ongoing operations and educational programming. So be looking for that. I might just buy one just for nostalgia reasons.
Any word how much it's going to cost?
No idea, but yeah. So that's that one. Raja Krishnamoorthi, a senior member of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, this being separate than the Permanent Select Committee on Investigations that Ron Johnson's a part of, today raised alarm. This is a different Permanent Select Committee. Today raised alarm over rising Islamophobia and anti-Semitism during the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence hearing, marking 25 years since 9/11, days after the killing of 3 people in a San Diego mosque. He says, more than 20 years after 9/11 happened, Islamophobia in the U.S. has not gone away. Further, it says on Jamil Jaffer, founder and executive director of the National Security Institute and George Mason University's Anton Scalia Law School, who identified himself as a Muslim, echoed Krishnamoorthi's concerns and warned that anti-Semitism and anti-Muslim hate are rising together. He says, quote, as a Muslim, I don't like Islamophobia. We have seen a rise in both these trends, anti-Semitism and anti-Islamism, here in the United States. Jaffer added that the same people who hate Jewish people hate Muslims just as much, emphasizing that Americans are stronger together than at each other's throats. I think we have a problem here. If you haven't heard a recent release from Tucker Carlson, where he went on debating an Israeli journalist, saying, my critique of the Israeli government in no way is a critique against Jewish people or, any of that. So while we may get into Israel's possible foreknowledge, I think there is pretty good evidence of foreknowledge on 9/11. This is not anti-Semitic. And I often wonder why Muslims aren't getting more involved in the 9/11 truth movement, because the controlled demolition aspect of it would show that it wasn't hijackers and planes that took the towers down. But
yeah, I have some Muslim friends who have theory on that, and they basically say that, they're obviously self-interested, that this will be thrown in their face by saying, well, of course you're going to defend Muslims because, you're defending your own, and therefore you have no credibility, and that's why they just stay quiet. Josh and Ted and Ellie all have their hands.
See that? Yeah. Let's go to Ted.
Oh, you're still muted.
Yeah, sorry. Josh had his hand up first, but I'll be really brief. Somebody brought it to my attention that this is a mosque that is pretty central to the 9/11 story and the alleged hijackers who were in San Diego. So I'll read this person's email that the San Diego Mosque, the Islamic Center of San Diego on Ekstrom Avenue, was one of the mosques at the center of the 9/11 story. The longtime FBI informant Abdul Sattar Sheikh, who housed two of the alleged hijackers, was also coordinating with and being paid by Saudi intelligence, was one of the founders of that specific mosque that was subject to the shootings last week. He was a very high-profile person there. Also, it appears that Bayumi had links to the Islamic Center. So just starting to take a look at this, I quickly looked at the victims to see whether they potentially had any, connection to those guys or to the 9/11. Haven't, gotten anywhere on that. But anyway, wanted to bring it to people's attention. So
Yeah, thank you. I'm sure Josh probably has something else.
Sure. Yep. I
Go
put
ahead.
in the group chat a YouTube video of that House Intelligence Committee hearing. I listened to it this afternoon before the War Room, and I thought it was interesting. The members of Congress in the hearing, they talked about the system blinking red and that there was a failure of imagination before 9/11. But I don't think that is the case, because the intelligence community was fully aware that the alleged hijackers were granted U.S. visas, living openly in the United States. And I don't think this was some sort of negligence of the intelligence community, or they didn't have enough funding, powers, too many civil liberties for the American people. But I think it's interesting to see the questions being asked and the three witnesses, how they answer. I think it's more of a mainstream political view, but I think it'll be interesting if you have time to watch this committee hearing. And if you watch it, I'd be interested to hear anybody's thoughts on it.
Yep, I hadn't got the beat me to the shot there. I had two more screens to get to this video that you also shared in the chat, but it says here, if I can click on it fast enough, Representative Crawford chaired U.S. House Committee continues review of 9/11 report's 25th anniversary nears, and it was available up on their website, the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. You can see the two articles underneath. Talks about an announcement that this hearing's coming up, and then on the 20th they actually had the hearing, and they do provide links on this page that will allow you to go and see the entire 2 hours of hearings. There was an article, and hang on, Ellie, I'll get to you and Carl in just a second. There was an article written on it, National Security Fraying, being dismantled or falling into disrepair. This person's basically getting a synopsis of what came out of that hearing. And he says here, the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence held 9/11 Commission hearing on May 20th that served as a public reckoning with central question. After 25 years to post-attack reforms, is the U.S. intelligence community stronger or more vulnerable? The answer from witnesses was unambiguous and unsettling. The security architecture is, in the words of one witness, fraying, being dismantled, or falling into disrepair. And that quote came from senior fellow Bruce Hoffman on the Council of Foreign Relations. So basically, from what I got from this article was that we don't have enough intelligence sniffing into our rights, eroding civil liberties, and continuing to just usurp the Constitution. And it says at the bottom line, 25 years of post 9/11 reforms built something real, but the hearings surfaced a bipartisan consensus that is now at risk of being dismantled faster than it could be updated. So they need more money and more power and more oversight over we the people. It's disgusting. Ellie.
Hey, one thing I wanted to mention, the question you're asking at the end about, Muslims questioning 9/11. I think the main challenge is that the truth of 9/11 doesn't absolve Islam necessarily, because it relates to the potential involvement of Saudi intelligence and other intelligence services of their neighbors. So, and it goes back to the challenge in the United States, where I was just looking up the details. 73 to 80% of Muslims in the United States are Sunni. and only 10 to 15% are Shia, which is more aligned with Iran. And so by nature, you're not going to get the majority of Muslims in the United States joining this effort because it actually would contradict the edicts of their own leadership, who actually support the official story. And that's why really Iran's the only country whose leaders have actually questioned 9/11, right? So I think that distinction that gets lost when we talk about Islam and 9/11, and it's important to call it, especially with this current war in Iran and which countries are taking sides with the United States and Israel. Thanks.
Thanks, Ellie. Carl?
Yes, a couple of questions. I think I've raised, well, actually I have a quote I'd like to read. I can provide the screenshot. I can try to read it. My sinuses are bothering me a little bit today. If you wanted to read it, Jane, it basically identifies the marching orders of the New World Order circa 1915.
I need to get through the news, Carl, though. Could we come back to this when I open up the table?
After the
Yeah,
news, I think this would be very insightful.
Okay. I'll come back to you. Thank you. At 5:15, I want to hand it over to Ted. That gives me 2 minutes to get through the rest of these headlines. So if you guys will bear with me, I'll try to do that. Let's see. Share. Come on. Oh, I didn't turn my fan on. My computer is overheating. Give me a second.
Wow, it's really taking a while.
It's really taking a while. Next news story, Harrison firefighter Kenneth Fusco. I don't know if he's a relative of Rebecca Fusco. Dies from 9/11 related illnesses. Harrison firefighter died on Monday from 9/11 related illnesses after serving the World Trade Center following the 9/11 attacks. He was a ground zero on September 11th and the months that followed. He assisted in the rescue and recovery efforts following the attacks where he breathed in toxins that ultimately led to his death. He proudly served the Harrison Fire Department for 45 years. Rest in peace, Mr. Fusco. Another one, I was going to play this for sake of time. Basically, this lady, the quote for the title is 9/11 survivor says her body is now burning itself from the inside out. She doesn't mean literally, but she is going through a lot of pain right now. Her immune system is attacking itself. Again, just being in the air around 9/11 at that time. She survived both the 93 bombing and the 2001 bombing. And she's just really struggling to try to make things right. And thoughts and prayers with her as well. Her name was Jen Ashcraft. I'll put all these links in the show notes too. Next news article, Trump announces highest civilian honor for 9/11 hero remembered as the man in the red bandana. That would be Wells Carruthers. Trump basically posthumously is awarding him this honor. And here's a picture of Wells when he was a young kid with his red bandana, him a little bit older. And the Dropkick Murphys, we shared this, I think, a couple months ago. The Dropkick Murphys actually put out a video about the man in the red bandana, Wells Carruthers. If you haven't heard that,
a great song.
And maybe when we leave off at the end of the show, I'll sign off with that video again. That was pretty good. So, and that leads me to believe it is 5:15, so I am on time. International Center for 9/11 Justice, as I said earlier, put out this report, expert linguistic analysis. There we go, got it this time. Cast doubt on We Have Some Planes. Radio transmissions attributed to Mohamed Atta. Here is an audio of what is suspicious. Hopefully it'll come through clearly. Here we go.
Buddy, we have some planes. Just stay quiet and you'll be okay. We're turning to the airport.
We have some planes. We're going back to the airport. I'm doing a horrible job of what I thought I heard was Rastafari. So I don't think Mohamed Atta was a Rastafari, but something's off there. So we're going to turn it over to Ted to take us through what you found.
All right. Thanks, guys. Hi, everybody. So I figured you would probably cover the report that we put out this week. So, but I thought it would be good for me to just come on and walk through some of the key findings and answer questions and whatnot, and bring attention to it in case people weren't aware of it. So, yeah, I mean, it kind of speaks for itself, at least in terms of the headline. I just want to show people where they can find it, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
You go to our, is it possible for me to share?
Yep, getting there. Share one host only, all participants. Good to go. I think. Let me try it again. There we go.
Yeah, great. I'm going to share sound just in case I decide to share any of the other clips.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you we have a new section on our website called Iceland Reports and Working Papers. So if you go to resources and you go to active publications, you'll see it there. Click on that. This is the page where we published the flight simulator report that we published a couple weeks ago. Then scroll down to independent reports. So this was a report that we commissioned by a forensic linguist. She's a professor emerita from Georgetown University. She's highly distinguished in her field. So you can read all about her bio. There's a pretty detailed biographical section in the report itself. But so you click on that page and then you can go there and download the report. So yeah, so essentially I'll pull it up and just kind of walk through some of the key findings. I mean, the gist of it is, probably some people probably aware of this for a long time. That the radio transmissions purportedly made from Flight 11 sounded suspicious, perhaps didn't sound like somebody from the Middle East or native Arabic speaker. I first stumbled upon it actually a year and a half ago reading Elias Davidson's book, where he commented upon Rudy Decker's, who was the owner of Huffman Aviation, where Atta and Al-Shehi trained or got their pilot licenses in the year 2000. He said that the radio transmissions that were played to him did not sound anything like Atta, and they sounded like somebody from the Caribbean. So obviously I went to listen to it, and I pretty quickly agreed with that assessment. And I was almost, I was struck that this wasn't like a little more known in the 9/11 truth movement or talked about in the 9/11 truth movement. It's really not obvious to everybody. Maybe you need to have more, experience interacting with people from the Middle East or from the Caribbean or from wherever. But I was like, well, can we kind of prove this rigorously? Can we have, is there a field of expertise where somebody could analyze this and weigh in on whether indeed there's problems with the accent in the radio transmissions? And so I found this professor emerita, Natalie Schilling, and she was quite willing to work with us, and she was curious about it herself. And so this was a year and a half ago, but we finally engaged and really started the work with her at the beginning of this year. And so she produced this report. The key questions are, I highlighted it up here, but of course everybody can go read it. It's not that long. It's only 27 pages. So is the English accent of the voice purported to be Atta's consistent with that of a native speaker of Arabic, as Atta was known to be? If not, are there accents with which it is consistent? And secondly, could Atta's English have been different from typical Arabic English due to his language experiences and exposures over the course of his life? We also, once she got going on that, we subsequently also asked her, we had some questions regarding some of the other communications that purportedly came from Flight 93. And so, first of all, we just wanted to ask her if she could tell, putting her linguistic tools to use, what were the words that were actually uttered in the radio transmission that purportedly came from Flight 93 at 9:28 when the plane was purportedly hijacked. And then where the person who is taken to be the pilot said Mayday and some other stuff. We also asked her to weigh in on, could she distinguish from what were the words at the end of Cece Lyles's voice message to her husband, the first of two calls that she made to her husband, allegedly.
If I could just pause you there real quick.
Yeah.
5:20, I just got to do my 5:20 prayer, and we'll roll back into that. 5:20 is the time when Building 7 fell. I just use this every day, set an alarm on the clock, and just take a few seconds just to pray for 9/11 justice, whatever your faith is. So you guys will just join me for a minute here. Lord, come to you right now. I thank you so much again for these hearts and minds that continue to press for 9/11 truth. I thank you for the humility, civility that we have in this room, that we're all just have hearts and minds that want justice. Just pray that you continue to open doors for us, and where we shouldn't be, that those doors would close, that we would see justice in our lifetime. In your name, amen. Thank you. All right.
All right. Thanks, Gene. So and actually, I want to also add, besides just what were the words, could she tell what the words that were said from Flight 93, allegedly pilot, is there anything questionable about the utterance from the point of view of semantics, pragmatics, or sociolinguistics? Just was there anything that stood out, unusual, questionable about what was said in the transmission, besides trying to figure out what the actual words were that were uttered? So the gist of it is that there are specific features in the accent that make it inconsistent with what would be expected of a native Arabic speaker of English. Native Arabic speaker would almost always speak with a trilled R, like a r, kind of rolled R. And the R in the transmissions, the Flight 11 transmissions, is what you see as an R dropping. They're dropping the R. And also there's the second major aspect that she points to is sort of a sing-songy, wide pitch range sort of nature of it, of the voice. So what she says is inconsistent with, not as clear cut as the first feature, but still generally inconsistent with how native Arabic speakers speak English. And she actually can point to the transmissions purportedly made from Flight 93 after the plane was purportedly hijacked, that and point to the features in those transmissions, made by the alleged hijacker supposedly, where the voice does actually include the features that you would expect from a native Arabic speaker. So you can hear the contrast between the two sets of transmissions, the voices in the two sets of transmissions. And then she also had to take a look at Mohamed Atta's his background, or what's been reported about his background, to look into whether he had any language influences or exposures that might account for those accent features. And based on both conventional accounts of his background, as well as maybe unconventional accounts, say from people in Florida, like his reported ex-girlfriend, Amanda Keller, who said that he spoke French and Hebrew fluently. But regardless of all of the languages that he had exposure to, or the accents he had exposure to, none of them can really account for the features that we hear in the transmissions of the R dropping and the sing-songy nature. All those other languages and accents, if they were, first of all, that would be after he's 18 or 20 or whatever. First of all, I mean, he moved to Germany, I think in his early 20s. So he spoke a lot of German, but another thing that she pointed to is the fact that he was allegedly reportedly very reclusive, not particularly social, etc. So people that behave in that way tend to be less inclined to pick up accent features of other accents that they're exposed to. So the bottom line is that there's no reason to think that any of the accents that he had exposure to in his lifetime would account for the features that are in the transmissions supposedly from Flight 11. She does convey some caution. Just there's a limited amount of speech to actually analyze, and the audio is messy and loud, like noisy. But nonetheless, you can draw some pretty strong conclusions from it. And essentially, if it were Atta, and I highlighted this somewhere, that if it were Atta, he would either have had to have some exposure that we had no idea what it was, that's just not reported about his background, either in conventional accounts or unconventional accounts. And also, or alternatively, he would just simply, in an idiosyncratic way, speak differently from a native Arabic speaker. And, she basically says people don't just speak differently for no reason. It would be like if I just spoke with an Australian accent even though I, grew up in Wisconsin, So yeah, and so again, it's this finding may have been out there for a long time, but I think it's important for people to know that we have a highly distinguished expert who has analyzed this now and determined that it is inconsistent. And I think this adds a lot of strength to, no, I'm not going to, it's not dispositive, but I think it adds quite a bit of strength to the claim that Atta was not actually involved in the hijacking or the supposed hijacking of Flight 11, and that that voice came from some other source. I'd like to dig into this a little more, and I'd actually like to ask Professor Schilling to also look at this. But going through the passenger list of Flight 11, from what I've determined, there's nobody on that passenger list that comes from a Caribbean or West African background. I'd like to just go through that list again and just say, are there any? Most of it were people like Americans, a few Europeans, a few Asians, East Asians, in terms of the males on reported to have been on Flight 11. But just to do our due diligence and say, because what she also says is she didn't do an exhaustive search for every single form dialect of English in the whole world, but the Caribbean and some West African accents are the ones that stand out as being the most consistent. But I'd like to just rule it out and say, hey, we know that it could, we can establish here that this accent didn't come from any of the people that are on the passenger list of Flight 11. So we got to take another look and make sure there's not any accents that we should look at. Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick, just for the benefit, there's been a few people that have joined. Ted's joined us right now, and he's going over the article that they just released about an expert linguistic has done analysis on the radio transmissions attributed to Mohamed Atta. Thank you. Continue. Sorry to interrupt there.
Yeah, no problem. So as far as the other findings, essentially, she kind of there in some official accounts, in some official documents, it's claimed that the person purportedly who was the pilot from the plane said, "Mayday, get out of here." She listened to it and said that we can't rule that out, but it's equally consistent sound-wise with "Mayday, we're all going to die here," or "Mayday, we're going to die here." And there's actually more logic to that being said, because if you think Mayday, you're saying that to somebody outside the plane, to air traffic control or whatever in theory, but then you say get out of here, then you're suddenly switching it to somebody in the cockpit saying get out of here, and then Mayday, get out of here. It doesn't really fit, like the recipient, and it's said so quickly that so the recipients of the speech switches so much that it kind of doesn't, it's not logical. It would be more logical to say Mayday, we're all going to die. Now, the second thing that she points to in the report is that if you just, I'll go ahead and play them. Actually, I have it up here. All right, so I'll play it once more. It's just. So essentially what's strange about this is also that there's such a code, there's such a protocol to like how people communicate with air traffic control, how pilots communicate with air traffic control, and vice versa. And it's very critical to kind of like it's the norm to like kind of identify yourself and make sure that you're in communication with somebody before you then share the information. And some people say, well, he's in the middle of fighting for his life. He's not going to be able to do that. But I found, FedEx. There was a FedEx flight in, I think, about 1994 that there was a man on the plane who basically tried to take it over, and he was heavily armed and fought with 3 other people on the plane to take control of it. And when the pilot finally managed to get on the radio and communicate with air traffic control, he was very focused and like went through the normal protocol that you would expect. I'm not going to bother trying to find it now. It might take a little too long, but so when you look at the transmission that comes purportedly from Flight 93, I find it to be very performative. And it's not like, oh, I'm trying to establish contact with you. I have something specific that I'm asking for, or giving them very concrete information about what's happening on the plane. It's like, it's extremely performative. Mayday, we're all going to die here. Mayday, and also the emotionality of it. Again, ask yourself, how realistic is it a pilot who's like in the middle of, say, fighting some hijackers, going to say, we're all going to die here. Mayday, we're all going to die here. It's a little suspicious in my view. So that's pretty much it. And she, as far as the CC Lyles thing, she basically concluded that she can't say definitively what the words were that uttered, but uttered. But there's two interpretations that I've seen, circulated in the 9/11 Truth Movement. One is that she says it's a frame, and the other is like "you did great" or something like that. And she basically said it's much more consistent with "it's a frame" than something along the lines of "you did great." So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you. You said you also analyzed CC Lyles.
That was the last thing that I just covered. That she said.
Sorry, I was trying to do two things at once and I didn't do it well.
Yeah.
For Jane, I hear you're getting echo. I see you're in here as Jane Clark and then as Jane C. So you might have joined twice on your other device, and that might be where your echo is coming from. But let's go to the hands. Carl.
Yes, couple of questions for Ted. Ted, would you agree with certainty that there were explosives or incendiaries pre-positioned in towers 1, 2, and 7?
That has nothing to do with the paper that he just.
No, this is a three-step question. It absolutely has everything to do with this. It's a simple question. Could Ted answer that?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead.
Well,
the
argument. Yeah. So my follow-up question to that is the argument is that whoever had the wherewithal to pre-position and time the explosions in those three towers was not radical Islam, and they would not have left to chance the idea of 19 odd characters. Maybe they'll get lucky and hijack the planes and fly them into the buildings. No, they would have used something like drone aircraft, which I would just ask if you have ever read in Bolin's Solving 9/11, he spends a whole chapter going into the depth of the ownership of Israeli aircraft industries, of companies within the U.S. that modify aircraft even into fuel tankers. And they also had the control over software in both the FAA and DoD computer systems to plant false images. I mean, we keep dwelling on these distractions which are planted in any kind of a false flag operation, like the phone calls from the planes and et cetera, and radar tracking of flight paths that may have been the exercise rather than what was really happening. So, I mean, that's a basic question. Have you read Bolin's Solving 9/11?
Actually, you know what? No, I have not read it from front to back.
Please do. Please
Sure,
do.
I will. Yeah. As far as as far as the question of yes, I completely agree with the working logic and the premise that the perpetrators of 9/11, because they were planning to demolish the buildings, would not leave to chance the hijacking and flying of the planes. That they would not count on teams of hijackers to carry out those deeds. And there are people in 9/11 Truth Movement who do argue that, and I disagree strongly with that line of thinking. And so a lot of the research that we've been doing is intended to, in a way, corroborate that premise, to corroborate that logical inference. And so I believe it is worth the time and worth the energy, depending on how much resources it takes, to look at these specific pieces of likely false evidence that were broadcast during the events of 9/11. People who are, especially when you're trying to make the case to the public or to Congress that not only were the buildings blown up, but actually the alleged hijackers may not have actually commandeered and flown these planes. If you can show them very concrete evidence that the transmissions that came from the plane sounds as if it very clearly like it did not come from one of the alleged hijackers that it's been attributed to, and that the first chapter of the 9/11 Commission report is titled based on, we have some planes, then you should bring that evidence to bear, I think, and raise awareness of it, and make it clear if you think the evidence all points in that direction, that it was not Islamic fundamentalists that hijacked these planes, that you should point to that as clearly as you can.
Or even that there were any hijacked planes at all. I mean, as an investigator, working with prosecutors and grand juries, etc., I tend to think one would want to lead with the strongest evidence, which is that there were explosives pre-positioned, and radical Islam had nothing to do with pre-positioning those explosives. And pre-positioned explosives point to the truth of false flag terrorism. So it seems that the most important question to lead with is this was false flag terrorism, and let's not get distracted with the voice analysis. The time is limited, and I'm sorry, but Berlin has done the deep dive on.
Thank you, Carl. All right. Ted, you want to respond to that?
I mean, I look, I completely agree with starting with the demolition of the buildings. I think you do start there, and I think that's, and then you can work out from there. I don't see this as a distraction. I'm puzzled as to why you honestly wouldn't welcome this finding. I think we have very clear evidence that this was done as, and this is speaking my personal opinion, that this is strong evidence that there were radio transmissions that were broadcast during the events of 9/11 in order to frame and make it look like there were hijackings going on by Islamic fundamentalists. And I think we have good evidence to refute that claim now. And it's been strengthened by this analysis. As far as, and I don't think that the evidence, in my view, and I'm extremely open-minded, and I think that there's a good chance that the planes that actually struck the towers were not the airliners that took off from the airports. But I don't think the evidence is like, you put out the evidence for every single piece of the story, and I think the evidence is not as dispositive. And in general, it's hard to find dispositive evidence in general. And I don't think the evidence is quite as dispositive. And if, in any case, this helps make that case. It's like, if you believe that drones were used, if et cetera, then I don't see why you wouldn't welcome this evidence to say, here we have further evidence that real hijackings, at least by Islamic fundamentalists, didn't take place. So yeah, I just completely disagree with your approach.
I know you have a hard stop at 5:45. We got two hands. Hopefully I can get through them. It leaves us 6 minutes. Go ahead, Ellie.
Yeah, totally agree with you, Ted. Obviously, this is just one of many things that you've focused on, which has brought us closer to the truth, and definitely not your focus. So hopefully, others like Carl can do some more research at the International Center.
Wait a minute.
So because it's been about obviously bigger things than just this particular story, which is the story of the moment. So let's talk about it real quick. I wanted to ask, related to Mohamed Atta. I know we had discussed previously that his father, who hopefully is still alive, did dispute his son's alleged involvement in 9/11 through various claims. I'm curious whether his father, if he is still alive, does have any recordings of his son, or if there are any other recordings of his son actually speaking that could be compared to this. We have some planes clip. Any thoughts about going in that direction, Ted?
I think if you can find audio recordings of his voice relatively close to the time of 2001, that would be very helpful. I would, and as to his father, I'm aware of the reports from his father in 2001, 2002 about saying that his son was still alive. I have no idea if he's alive now, obviously, but I would encourage anyone who's interested to try to track down that information. We could look into it as well. I think it's worth trying, Ellie. I do. I think the evidence as it stands now is pretty strong, but if you can have reliable audio of his voice from that time, that could help. Now you might run into a situation where people, with AI and everything else today, are going to discount that. But it's still.
Oh yeah, this would be something. This would be some archival evidence. No.
And hopefully you could establish. Hopefully you could establish a clear. His father produced that audio or whatever, and you know. He did live it, you know, like who knows how much he was going home to Egypt at that time. You know, he lived in Germany for quite a while, and then, you know, as we understand, he was in the U.S. What he was actually doing is less clear, but but it's worth trying.
All right, 2 minutes. There are 2 hands, 4 minutes. Jerry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting area of study. And one of my points is going to be exactly what Ellie said. These guys were purported to be very public, you know, going to nightclubs, fraternizing with ladies of the night and all of this stuff. There has to be people out there other than just the guy from, is it Venice in Florida, the airport, who, the air training place, the place where they're trained, who have experience listening to this guy's voice. But I mean, you're not reaching a hard conclusion here, are you? You're just saying this is an area that should be questioned. Because, for example, in a scenario like Carol's, you could have a drone flying along, you could have this pre-recorded, and you could still have the recording coming from the drone back to air traffic control. So it's always going to be speculative, but there is not an area that shouldn't be open to that speculation. So yeah, I like the angle of it.
Thanks, Jerry. The one thing I will say is that eyewitness evidence of voice identification is much less reliable. Yeah, if you have a recording and you know that that's the person's voice, you can analyze them to see how similar they are. But recollections of somebody's voice, especially after this much time has passed, unfortunately, that's going to be very weak evidence. If you can find, I mean, if you could interview a huge sample, and you know 90% of them say, yeah, that doesn't sound like him. Okay, but you have to be able to find that number of people, and even then, it's like, you know, this is talked about in the report. Actually, I encourage people to take a look at it. But Professor Schilling does specifically comment on the lack of reliability of voice identification by, especially with this much time having passed.
All right, 1 minute for one question, Craig, which agrees with Ted that they both know what Shawnee Lake is, and a plane did not crash near Shawnee Lake. Sorry, go ahead, Craig.
And by the way, I'll stay as long as it takes.
You're muted, Craig. Oh, I'm muted too.
Oh, thank you, Ted.
Sorry, you were saying, Ted? Sorry.
Oh, I'm saying I'm not going to. I have a hard stop at 5:45, but I'll stay to answer. You know, I'm not going to rush.
Okay, well, that's very kind of you. I did have a question and hopefully a quick follow-up, just a comment, I guess. I'll make it as fast as I can. One thing to think about, it's a frame. I remember reading about this some time back, and I was interested in that because I can't remember, honestly. I'm not sure why I'm even raising this, because I'm not really sure what the dispute was. It seems to me Griffin wrote about it at some point, but anyway, I'm just sort of trying to think in my memory what the dispute.
Yeah, Elias. Well, as far as like what she said, you know, like Elias Davidson in his book says that she said you did great. You know, for example.
Oh, that's what he said. Okay, yeah. I have that book too. Yeah, interesting. Yeah. I am kind of curious because all this ties into it's kind of related in a way to your previous presentation that Piers made, because it has to do with the whole question of whether there were real hijackers or not. I can't help but be curious though, because David Chandler's on your board, and he seems to be making a very strong case. Well, no, let me rephrase that. He's attempting to make the case that there were actual hijackers, and that the hijacking scenarios were real, and he does that with the passenger revolt, the alleged passenger revolt on Flight 93. And he's also made the comment that the planes were really hijacked, but then remote control may have been used to hijack the planes from the hijackers. So it seems like, your organization is putting out one point of view, and he seems to have a different point of view. And I'd like you to comment on that. And then I have a very quick follow-up to that.
Sure. Yeah. So you basically articulated David's point of view, and I guess you could say quite simply, like, I have a different point of view from David, and the other many of the other folks that I'm doing research with have a different point of view. And we think the evidence points towards there not having been real hijackings by Islamic fundamentalists. So I guess in any organization, you're not going to have consensus on everything. David is, I will generally try to be transparent as possible, which I think David actually would appreciate that, that David doesn't agree with some of the research findings that we're publishing.
Well, that's good to hear, actually. I just wanted to the quick follow-up was just about an email I got from you guys this week about the UK column presentation. I guess, which was, the same topic as what you did on this thing. And there was something in it that that I was concerned about, and it basically, without trying to find it here, you basically say there that it relates to, sorry, I hold on a second. Okay, I had it all ready to go, but anyway, basically the bulletin, I guess, that you wrote up to go with the presentation basically states that you attempt to show that there were not human pilots that were used to fly the routes that were flown on 9/11. And I guess my concern there is that does what I was concerned about a couple of weeks ago when I asked you before. It kind of reinforces the idea that the flight paths that you studied are the actual flight paths, which I would, in the case of the Pentagon, I would dispute. So I'm wondering whether you might rethink your wording when you describe these flight paths.
Yeah, well, I mean, as I said to you a couple of weeks ago, when Piers gave his presentation here, I think our findings on, we have more confidence in the flight path and the flight paths of the planes that struck the towers. We have video evidence, even for flight 11. We have video evidence. We have radar, and we have radar evidence, and we have a lot of video evidence for flight 175. Obviously, with the Pentagon, all that you really have to go on is the FDR data and the observable damage. And so, yeah, in my view, it's not. How can I say this? The finding, it's sort of with a caveat as far as the finding goes for the plane that allegedly struck the Pentagon, that if this is the correct flight route, if it actually happened, that it would be more consistent with automated control.
Right. That would have been maybe a better way to word it in your email, because you didn't word it that way. You made it. But I mean, put that caveat in there.
Yeah, I mean, well, we're clear in the report that the report doesn't take a position on that, that was like a one sentence paragraph where it said the routes flown on 9/11. So it clearly applies to the routes that were flown into the towers.
Right. Maybe allegedly would be better.
Well, I mean, yeah,
flight 77, the alleged flight path.
I mean, yeah, we could be, I guess, I mean, it's sort of a trade-off always between the amount of detail and, caveating that you put into something versus like just getting the basic point out. So
it's just one word. So maybe I would argue it's worth doing.
Thanks, Greg.
Well,
yeah.
Thank you.
Sandra?
Yeah, I mean, I know you won't have the answer to this. The only thing the only question I have is if this was obviously taped or fake or whatever, why didn't they just bother taping someone with a Muslim accent, or with an Arabic accent? Why wouldn't they take the risk of taking someone who doesn't sound Arabic? And it's weird to me. So I don't know if they were just sloppy or they just thought it was good enough, and obviously, like I said, you can't have the answer, but it's just weird.
I mean, yeah, I guess, they didn't carry it. If, in my view, like they didn't carry out the crime. The explanation would be they didn't carry out the crime perfectly. Like they made mistakes. They were sloppy in areas. Or they were arrogant maybe, and they just thought it doesn't matter so much. Yeah, I mean that exactly. So all I know is it's not consistent. Yeah, so. No, I totally agree. Of course.
Ted,
response to Craig, changing that word to allegedly opens the door to the no planers. That's my objection to that term, or one of them.
Yeah, I mean, to come back to that. Sorry, Craig. Just to like in general, we've been careful. We've been careful with the language, and we were clear in the report about that we were not assuming the paths to necessarily be true and accurate. You know, and in that one little sentence, if we had just said reported, it might have been the more accurate way to say it. I'd have to go back and look at it, you know. But no, I don't mind the objection. Just to be clear.
Yeah.
Ted, you got to go, or do you have one more question from Jack?
My daughter's yelling at me right now. But
okay,
I can see that you're
all good.
You're getting called away.
I do want to thank you so much for being here again. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead,
I'm
Jack.
willing to take another question if somebody has if it's a truly constructive question. I'm willing to take it. But
all right, go ahead, Jack. Try.
Hi, just responding to Sandra. I was in the Marines. I was in charge of
well, hold
a
up
parade.
there, Jack.
Yeah. Hold on,
because he's got to go, and I just want to say goodbye to him.
Keep Ted on for nothing. So.
Thank you, Ted, for presenting that again. If you get a chance, check out these 2 articles. Expert linguistic analysis cast out on We Have Some Planes radio transmissions attributed to Mohamed Atta, and from last week, I think 2 weeks ago, manual or automated flight simulation study and analysis of reported aircraft maneuvers on 9/11. Ted, any parting words before you go?
No, just thanks everyone for listening. Feel free to contact us if you have any questions, and yeah, see you again soon.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Ted. All right,
Ted.
Jack, your comment, Sandra.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I was in the Marines, and I was put in charge of organizing a parade in Okinawa, and I thought it went off pretty well, but there was a lot of details, like having jets fly over the parade really low, and having a bunch of helicopters, and then having a artillery piece in a field that fired off blanks, and having all the troops march, and yet afterwards, the colonel who was in charge of me was very critical. He said, "Well, you should have had those planes dip their wings," and he was, very angry about it. So it's the management of large projects, and I studied this at MIT under Ernst Frankel. When you try to manage a large project, you're going to get things wrong. It's just too much, and
totally fine.
So the little details that we find, in 9/11, like not having an Arabic accent, that's just a normal human screw up.
Okay. I mean, it's again, they've been arrogant with mistakes anyway, and they know that they can get away with them, so they don't have to try so hard as long as they get the basics right. So that would be my theory, and I agree with you. But I was just playing devil's advocate because,
all right,
that question did come to mind.
One more news item, and then I'll open up the table and get to you, Craig. Last thing, this Saturday, Mick Harrison, who's on the call, he has his Saturday calls. This previous Saturday, and every Saturday, typically, unless his workload is too much, will be available 5 p.m. Eastern time. If you need to get to his calls, I made an easy one. You go to 911warroom.com/Mick, and you'll be able to get to the Zoom link, and it'll take you right into the room. Again, every Saturday, 5 p.m. Eastern time. This past Saturday, they had Norman Swanepoel, otherwise known as 9/11 Revisionist, and Bob Grenier. He is an engineer on low energy nuclear something. I forgot what LENL stands for, but very intelligent guy. They were supposed to be there to present the evidence for directed energy weapons, and it seems that, in my opinion, for 2 hours, they talked about how to, through deductive reasoning, say that it wasn't any other mechanism and it had to be due, but they didn't really provide evidence of directed energy weapons, not to speak of them disparagingly at all, Mick. Just saying they didn't bring the evidence. But Mick, holding out an olive branch, said, hey, if you guys want to be able to present your evidence. At the end of the call, Bob said, we didn't even get into the evidence, which was troubling. But they presented something, and I don't know what to say. I didn't see any solid evidence for directed energy weapons, but it was a conversation. So with that, let's open up the table. Or actually, Mick, if you have any other comments or want to correct me on anything I said there, please feel free to.
Hey, Jane, I'm traveling, so I'm not going to put my camera on. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
So I don't have a lot to say. The call was recorded, and I'm hoping, Gene and Sandra, you might be able to help me make it available to people. I have the video and the audio files. They're big. Maybe could you post them on a Dropbox somewhere?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, so I'll send those to you. Can you handle the Google Drive links?
Yep.
Okay, good. So thanks for that. So I think I wouldn't have maybe quite the absolute description that you gave that there was no evidence presented. I think it was, they did have a number of video clips they presented from Dr. Wood herself. Dr. Wood did not appear, and I would have been interested in chatting with Dr. Wood, would still be interested in chatting with her. I mean, as the engineer who did this analysis originally, there are some questions only she can answer. So those questions did not get answered. We didn't really have a Q&A. They spent all the time with the presentation, which is fine. And we'll probably do a follow-up. I'm going to have to digest what they did give, which were a number of links. And I don't know if they sent everybody these links. They may have been in the chat, but they sent some links to books and videos and things, which would add some detail. And they were time limited to 2 hours. So I'm not criticizing them at the moment. I agree there were categories of evidence or potential evidence not discussed yet, like the history of directed energy and the status of it on 9/11 and who had access to it and how it works and what indications it leaves. I mean, those are kind of big questions. So we didn't get into that. It was more the indirect evidence. So having said that, I did appreciate them taking the time to present, and other folks are welcome to give me their views. Reminding everybody these Saturday meetings are just to help me as one of 5 members of the authoring group of the report to Congress that we're preparing with Ted and others. I'm not representing Ted or others in that group, just myself. But if for some reason you think it's valuable to talk with me in that role, you're welcome to call me on Saturday. That's all I have, Gene.
Thank you, Mick. I do appreciate the opportunity to speak about the whatever anybody feels is evidence for 9/11, and I think what Mick's showing is they're not gatekeeping. They're being open and objective to all evidence. While it might not resonate with everybody, he's at least open to hearing the evidence. So thank you for that.
Question for Mick.
Yep.
What is the next Saturday's theme, Mick?
You know, I don't remember if we set. I did. No, I don't know that we've set a theme yet. So it may be open to everyone's contributions. I usually have questions I want input on. I don't always get them out in advance. So good question, but poor answer.
If I could add to that, the question the week before that was anything that anybody has on anthrax that would help Mick, or what do we expect from Congress? What do we expect Congress to do? And if you have answers to those questions or evidence for those topics, please get them to me or Mick. You can always email Sandra or I. It'll get to both of us if you go to contact@911warroom.com, and we'll get that off to Mick. Richard, anything else before I go back in the stack?
Yeah, quick follow-up. Mick, I have a 1-hour presentation as to how the evidence shows that the DEW theory can't work and doesn't the way they've explained it. Are you willing to allow me to present that for a half hour? I mean, an hour?
I am.
Okay. And that's possible. It might be this Saturday. I got a
If you
plan
send
for
me
that.
an email requesting to do it this Saturday, I'll check my notes, but I don't think there's anything that prevents that. So I would go ahead and let people know you're going to do that.
Okay. Thanks.
Nice.
You're welcome.
Yeah, let us know, and I'll let everybody else know. Thank you. Thanks, Richard. Back in the stack. Craig, what do you got?
Yeah, I wanted a follow up on Richard's comment about the flight pass. I completely understand why you would not want to imply that the planes didn't hit the towers. I would say that the solution that was found, if that's the reason that they did that, was not a good one. Because if we're looking at if we're looking at flights 11 and flight 175 as being one thing and the other flights as being something else, then perhaps it should have been worded in a way that separated them, because as you know, the flight path of flight 77 is very much in dispute. I would also add something else, because Ted made the point, and I agree with him, that the planes that hit the towers were not likely to have been the original flights. So that would mean that they didn't originate, that the beginning part of whatever the flights of those crafts were would not match the official flight path. Only the end would match. I don't know if that makes sense, but to me it does. So the alleged flight paths, I think, even would apply in terms of 11 and 175. Although I have no problem with making it with it being made clear that that there's no claim being made that the planes didn't hit the buildings. But the problem is that the way that it's worded in their email, it says the flight path, the flights that were, or the paths that were flown. That's like stating it as fact, and that's a problem, I think. I mean, it's not it's, I'm just pointing it out. I'm not sort of trying to make a huge deal of it. I just think this is something, and I don't even like the word reported either, because reported implies something that really happened and somebody saw it and that they reported it. I think alleged is a much better term. So I don't know. Does that make any sense to you, Richard?
Yeah.
What I just said?
Yeah. Thanks for clarifying. I hope they can do that in their report.
Nice. Yeah. Well, apparently it's just the email bulletin, so it's going to be forgotten as the report will be what people remember, which is the main thing.
Thanks, Craig. Again, for everybody, before we go to Carl, the table's open. If anybody has anything they want to discuss or share any new 9/11 news, please do so now. We'll go to Carl first. Go ahead, Carl.
Craig, or Gene, the main thing I wanted to bring up, which I'll bring up secondarily, is a quote from someone who published an article or a book in 1915 concerning the essence of the New World Order, which I think is actually extremely enlightening to the entire context of 9/11. But preparatory to that, and this will be brief, and I'm expressing only a concern, is that three of the five, Richard, Ted, and Mick, have indicated to me that they have not read Berlin's Solving 9/11. And I doubt that the other two of the five have read it. And I do think it is an essential compilation of circumstantial evidence that should not be ignored by the five who are submitting this, these writings to Senator Johnson's staff. Now, Gene, I'll upload into text a quote from this 1915 publication. I'm having a bit of trouble with my sinuses today, so I am maybe not the best person to read it, but I think you'll find it extremely enlightening. It might make for a 10-minute topic of conversation, and then I'll identify who the author of this writing was and the significance of that. So I'll put that in chat right now.
Okay, depending on how long it is. Waiting for it to come in chat. It's not there yet. While we're waiting for that, I'll go to Magnus because I'm sure he's got some videos. Magnus? Oh,
Hello,
wait.
Gene. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you, Gene. I wanted to say that Ted Walter did a very great job, and Mick Harrison, it's very great to see you. And Richard Gage, it's now 20 years since you aired in Norway on National Geographic, and that was very incredible. I didn't know at that time that it was 3 towers, and didn't go much deeper into it until 2016. So I wanted to say great work for staying up for so long and doing so hard work and keeping up for so great work. I can't express so great. My feelings is very powerful here because you are so great, Richard Gage. 20 years for you.
Oh gosh, thank you. You too.
A lot of greatness there.
A lot of greatness. Yes.
I have 2 videos for you, Gene. It's very strange. It's from the airport, and one is from 9/11 Truth Norway. It's strange you haven't heard from them.
Okay, this one's 10 minutes. Do you know where we're going in the video?
Yeah, just go to the mid video there.
Somewhere in the middle, huh?
Yeah, just pause it, and you see the video is named Norway, 9/11 Truth Norway.
Mm-hmm.
Why we
Oh.
fight.
Is that what that says? Oh.
Origin, maybe they are talking Norwegian, but I feel it's strange that you haven't heard from these guys yet. They've been doing this for many years, but it doesn't look like they are.
Magnus, what year is this from?
Oh, this is just
17
from
years ago.
yeah, but they
2008.
have other groups and videos too, but I haven't seen them active for many years,
Well,
and that's very strange.
No, it's not that strange, because I can tell you that in the early years there were tons of groups everywhere, and
Okay.
and for years I coordinated the translation team for AE 9/11 Truth, and we had, we were dealing with people in countries everywhere. We had 30 languages covered, and a lot of them had local groups. And I had I had a whole list of all the groups that basically were international, and basically none of them exist anymore. Just like in this, here, I mean, the initial fire and push really died out after a few years. People moved on to other things. They they had families, so things happen, life happens, and the really truly dedicated people who see this through till the end no matter what are few and far between. So I'm not surprised at all, and I might even know a couple of them because we had a Norwegian translation team too. It may well have been one of those guys.
All right. Second video was security cam from Flight 77. 44 seconds.
Very strange one.
All right, here we go. Khalid Al-Madar, Mohamed Atta. You get stopped and checked. What was strange about it?
That they have so clear, they knows exactly what and everything. The guys who have these videos, they are not questioning it or anything. They're just saying these are the guys behind the thing.
Well, there's nothing on that video that really says much of anything. But again, there's no timestamp.
Yeah.
There's no further information. This could be these two guys at any port at any time.
Yeah, okay, I can send you more later, but I have some strange airport videos that the official says that these are the hijackers and blah blah blah. It's very strange. I want to share that later.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you anyway. Thank you for letting me be here, and thank you to everyone.
Thank you, Magnus. That was great. I'm going to go back to what Carl wanted me to read. I'm going to go through this real quick. This is from a book in 1915. It says, the historical mission of our world revolution is to rearrange a new culture of humanity to replace the previous social system. This conversion and reorganization of global security requires two essential steps. Firstly, the destruction of the old established order. Secondly, design and imposition of the new order. The first stage requires elimination of all frontier borders, nationhood, and culture, public policy, ethical barriers, and social definitions. Only then can the destroyed old system elements be replaced by the imposed system elements of our new world order. The first task of our world revolution is destruction. All social strata and social transformation and social formations created by traditional society must be annihilated. Individual men and women must be uprooted from their ancestral environment, torn out of their native milieus. No tradition of any type shall be permitted to remain as sacrosanct. Traditional social norms must only be viewed as a disease to be eradicated. The ruling dictum of the New World Order is, nothing is good, so everything must be criticized and abolished. Everything that was must be gone. After destruction of the old order, construction of the new order is a larger and more difficult task. We will have torn out the old limbs from their ancient roots in deep layers. Social norms will be lying disorganized and anarchic, so they must be blocked against new cultural forms and social categories naturally reemerging. The general masses will have been first persuaded to join as equals in the first task of destroying their own traditional society and economic culture. But then the New World Order must be forcibly established through people again being divided and differentiated only in accordance with our new pyramidal hierarchical system of our imposed global monolithic New World Order. What book is that from, Carl? You're muted, or we can't hear you.
And who wrote it?
What? Hold on. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, I just uploaded a screenshot of the article. I don't have the link to it right in front of me. I discovered this long ago. I've forgotten more than I've actually learned over the last 10 years. Nahum Goldman, who for about 2 decades, the crucial decades of the history of Israel, was president of the World Jewish Congress, which is an organization not to be taken lightly. It has met about every 4 years for the past 86 years. And in its earlier iterations, before it was formalized in 1936, it was an earlier iteration of the World Jewish Congress that actually declared war on Germany in 1933 as a global economic boycott by all obedient Jews of any German goods or any business selling German goods. And that was just as Hitler came to power. So sort of throwing gasoline on the fire and, building towards the destruction ultimately of Germany, destruction of the old order in Japan. It tends to point to, who has their hand on the throttle of the New World Order. So Nahum Goldman, he wrote this early in his life in Germany. I think he was even employed by maybe the foreign ministry of Germany at the time. But I think I've acquired over the years. I have them on the bookshelf. I need to dig them out. I think he expressed remorse over having written this so explicitly. It almost would have been the hubris in his youth of revelation of the method. It's like he was writing an article titled "The Spirit of Militarism," and he just couldn't resist, revealing the method. But this is about as explicit as I can imagine.
Yeah, it's right out of the Illuminati.
Well, it's right out of Talmudism. It's right out of Nahum Goldman, president of the World Jewish Congress for over 2 decades during the, I believe, the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s.
Thank you, Carl. People are noticing. I know Tucker's reporting on noticing more and more, and I appreciate what he's doing. Thank you, Carl.
You're welcome.
Jack?
Yes, this might be better for later, but I may have to leave. There's an excellent YouTube series called Academic Dissent, and the woman who made the videos about submission to authority makes a point that she's just found in her life growing up in an evangelical Christian town in the Midwest, is that when an emergency happens, the people have a tendency to go to a person of authority and want to follow him. They don't want to figure it out for themselves. And I've noticed that in my family. I went to the war and I saw the government lying, and so I'm quite cynical. But my brother, who's genetically the same to me and as me and even looked like me once, is much different. He believes everything Netanyahu says, and he quotes me. No, that can't be true because Netanyahu just said this or that, and Trump. And Trump is a good example because he was going way down in the polls, down to like 29 or 30, and now he's back up to 39 because people dig their big daddy, handling everything. And I think when we deal with people, we need to keep that in mind, that they're not going to discuss the details. They want to follow Big Daddy. So if you're a Big Daddy and you tell them what's going on, they'll say, well, Trump says this, but they say that. That's the only one that you're going to get through to them, because they're not going to care about whether a plane hit the Pentagon or any of that stuff. It isn't there, and they don't have brain space for that right now.
Thank you, Jack. I'm just going to ask people if we can. I appreciate that people want to go to the 30,000 foot level, but we're trying to stay more grounded with 9/11 news strategy and activism. So if you guys don't mind, let's try to keep it geared towards that. Jetty, go ahead.
Dropped off there.
Whoop, you can barely hear you, but yeah.
Yeah, right. I dropped off there. But on the direct energy weapon thing, and on that call, it was like a filibuster. Like, I'm going to talk for all of my time so you don't get to put me under scrutiny. And that's exactly what it was, because as soon as you do put that theory under any kind of scrutiny at all, I'm going to put a picture as an example in the chat there, right? If you could, I don't know if you could put this picture up, right? But if you look at it, it's the South Tower coming down. Now, their hypothesis is that this is due to a direct energy weapon. The very corner of the building is the thinnest bit of steel. And if you look, the sides here are coming down, but the corner isn't. So if this is being attacked by that kind of weapon, the corner here, which is just a facade panel, it's not even a consistent. Not necessarily. This isn't even a consistent column coming down here. There's gaps in it. The reason that bit there is still intact is because this is a core-based collapse that we're seeing. Because this bit here isn't attached to the core via any floor trusses, and that's why that corner bit there is okay. If it was a direct energy weapon, that bit of the corner would be affected more than the columns because it's less massive.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, absolutely. As soon as you look at the drawings and as soon as you take into account the structural reactions of the building, it can't be a direct energy weapon because the reactions in the building aren't consistent with it. It's consistent with a core-based collapse. So how does a direct energy weapon manage to bypass the perimeters and get to the core of the building first without affecting the... It bears no sense, and their explanation does not bear up to any kind of scrutiny whatsoever. And I think that talk, I absolutely applaud Mick for hosting that talk and giving them enough rope. But the point is, as soon as you look at their theory and then you look at it in context of the design and the structural reaction of the building, it's nowhere and it falls flat in its face. And they are just absolutely avoiding that scrutiny. I just wanted to make that point there. Just that picture there, that's just one point, that the corner of the building is not involved in the collapse, and it would be if it was being attacked by that kind of weapon. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Go to Mike Biga.
Hey, yeah, I want to second what he said, and I applaud Mick for hosting them and giving them rope. Unfortunately, there was no evidence, and it was hand-waving BS, to be frank. And I have to say, when I joined 9/11 many years ago, the disinfo people reached out to me, Judy Woods people with canned emails and someone calling themselves Emmanuel Goldstein. So I hope we all don't get too distracted. To add another point, we had the molten metal pouring out of the South Tower, and we had squibs. So that's a mistimed explosion. So, was something exotic? Maybe. I think we know thermitics and explosives were used. You know what I mean? This where they don't even have a weapon. Frankly, I want people to just think, I guess. I don't want to be too dismissive, but it is a ridiculous drain of energy. And if you guys ever have evidence, please write it down as a point and give it to us, and we will refute it.
My question for Bob was, I put it in the chat during Mick's call, and if we have another conversation. The question is basically that Bob makes a claim that he has done this experiment in his lab. So it's no longer theoretical. He can do this. So my question is, how much steel did he cause this process to molecularize, and how much energy was put into that sample that he did? And then can we extrapolate how much energy it would be required to do the Twin Towers? And I think what we'll find is that energy supply is just a ridiculous number. But we'll wait for that question. And also there's a tactic I've been seeing them use, and I don't mean to make it an us them, but it's said that directed energy weapons is not controlled demolition. And really trying to get to what they're saying there is they're substituting controlled for explosion and explosive demolition. And that's not accurate, because a controlled demolition is something showing intention. It's showing that it's engineered. And I believe if it was directed energy weapon, that's not a natural occurrence. That is something that is engineered. That is something that was intentionally done. So even if directed energy weapons were used, that's still controlled demolition. So I just wanted to agree on a definition of controlled demolition. But I digress. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to say, some people it's sincere, and I understand there are oddities, but I would say please use your rationality, and I'm happy to deal with facts. I've never been able to, you know what I mean? You got a too long didn't read book, which I read, ghost written, I believe. We don't really quite understand. I spoke to Kurt Weldon, and he said he tried to track down, I think, Judy Wood's history, or try to get in touch with her, and he couldn't. She's a myth and a legend, and she didn't hold up well when she had her different conversations with I think the people in DC. The hand waving weirdness. I'm a scientist, and I am floored, and I hate hearing her speak, because it is not scientific. Also I'm working on a confidential project, so I can't talk about it here, and some of you helped me, so thank you, Gene and Sandra and Richard and other people I won't name. But if anyone wants to help me out, I guess shoot your email in the chat. I'm happy to talk to people, but I'm keeping my name off of it for now. So it's related to 9/11 though, let's say. Cheers.
Thanks, Mike. I do also make another couple comments. Norman had said that Mick and I and somebody else had not gotten him the request for correction that AE did back in, I think, 2007 or 8, which it was in the show notes. I think it was 233, episode 233. You could still get to the show notes. The link to the request for correction back then is available there. I then provided it in the chat, and it was said by Judy Wood with her own voice from the video clip that Norman shared that request for correction didn't mention thermite, which I showed on page 29. It mentions thermite, and a link to another paper that mentions thermite 59 times. So the request for correction absolutely did mention thermite. Another claim that was kind of odd that I find, that I'm not picking on it. I mean, if somebody makes a statement, let's talk about it. She made a statement that when the directed energy weapons were used on the tower, that everything went poof up in the air, and I'm sorry to giggle, but that happening caused a seismic event. The fact that all this weight released into the air caused a seismic event. Go ahead. I'm sorry on you. I just doesn't make sense on the logic scale. Oh, you pulled it out. Go ahead.
Oh, shoot.
Go ahead.
All right. Sorry. I think you're talking about the part where she compared it to a mattress.
I didn't even hear a mattress.
Yeah, there was the part where she said that basically, that was about the lifting, where just like on a mattress, if there's two people on it and one person sits down, then the other person goes up, or the one person gets up off of the mattress, then it creates a wave for the other person still, and somehow liken that to seismic waves and things lifting from the ground. So yeah, it was I don't know. And that Patrick Bet-David, I mean, she has come out of the woodworks a little bit when she was interviewed by Patrick Bet-David.
I'm in construction. You guys know what Mike Cook knows what a dead man is. It's usually a huge block of concrete that weighs a ton. Anytime a lull, I'm standing right next to one. Anytime somebody picked that up, I didn't feel it, but when they set it down, I felt it. I just doesn't make any sense. But anyway,
Gene, you mentioned the request for correction. Judy Wood was referring to the 2007 RFC. Were you
yes,
also?
yes.
Okay, and the document that it referred to that did have thermite was what?
That was the request for correction.
But you said
What was-
inside of it, it referred to another document. I
uh,
mentioned it 59 times.
Yeah, what document was that?
Here,
Oh,
let's see if I can
you
share
know.
because I think I still got it up. Let me share screen. Screen 2 should be this screen. I gotta move.
Because they say that all the time.
Let's see, just so everybody knows. So here is the request for correction. Let me go back a page. So if you search for it in Google, it'll eventually come back to this post, this article on AE's site, May 31st, 2007. 9/11 family members and scholars request for correction submitted to NIST. And down here, read it at the 9/11 Journal of 9/11 Studies. You open that up, and that opens this document. And I do a Control F, and I say thermite, and it pops up about Dr. Stephen Jones, and the link mentions thermite. You click on this. Oh, and it had a bad link. It had a bad
Stephen
link.
Jones's. Go ahead.
But I found the document. You have to search for it. Why indeed did the WTC buildings completely collapse? By Stephen Jones in 2006. And if you search this for thermite, it pops up, as you can see there, 59 times. So
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yep. All right. I will share all that in the show notes as well. Back to Magnus.
Okay, Gene, I'm just gonna ask you, can we please watch the last video I sent you from BBC?
All right. Hang on, guys. I'm getting a little.
It's resent down there.
Recent. There we go. BBC. Share screen. I got stuff popping in the wrong windows. Here we go.
Thank you.
Wait, that's the same one. Well, we'll try it.
No, there's more.
The security video.
Maybe we should look at the ending.
Oh, it's only 26 seconds. We'll go.
Washington's Dulles Airport. The man in the blue shirt is Nawaf Al-Hazmi. He's just set off the metal detector and is searched again, and then allowed to board the plane. Hazmi and this man, Khalid Al-Minda, were both put on a terrorist watch list only a week before, but airport security never got the list.
All right.
Thank you, Gene.
Thanks, Magnus.
That was the hijacked video from the BBC. It's very strange videos, Gene. Thank you.
Yep.
You're doing a very great job, Gene and Sandra, and thank you for all the work you are doing and all the night and days. Thank you.
Thanks, I thought I was the great one, Magnus.
Greatness everywhere in the 9/11 Truth Movement. Mikey Perazzo.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Yeah, so as per, this is not everyone will be able to relate to this, but as per our conversation yesterday, I thought Tim Duffy was on our side. So maybe my reading comprehension isn't good, which I will testify it isn't good. I'm much better as a mechanic than a reader. But from what he said on that commentary on Craig Busieri's post, it looked like he wasn't on our team, actually. Can you clarify?
Yeah, so what Mikey's talking about is I put out all these Building 7 videos to different music. There's like a drop in a music, like famous. It builds up, and there's a great crescendo, and that's when I have the Building 7 fall. Well, one of them resonated with Craig Busieri. He's a firefighter in New York City. He
worked with Rudy.
Yes. And he got a lot of comments from the Getting Salty crew, which are New York City firefighters, and some positive, a bunch of negative. But Tim Duffy is another firefighter. He is well known for an image, if I can bring it up fast enough. And it's not coming up.
He was the firefighter that was riding on the Harley Davidson down at when the towers collapsed. Everybody's seen that picture.
I'm getting there. Thank you for stalling for me. So here's Tim Duffy, this famous picture. Tim, we're friends on Facebook. He believes the official story. He still believes, he said there were diesel tanks down in the bottom of Building 7, and that's why it fell. Even though we've heard from Raul and the other firefighters, the smoke was not black, so it wasn't diesel. NIST itself says it wasn't fuel oil fires. And I think 95% of the fuel was reclaimed after 9/11. So it wasn't a diesel tank fire. But I mean, there's some guys that aren't, he likes some of my posts, but he's not willing to go there. I think he may want to speak out, but he's trying to caution himself on getting his pension and whatnot. I'm sure he's very close to getting that right now, if he's not already, and just doesn't want to be ostracized, is the feeling I get from him. So
Can you read his comment and then let me know what I was missing from that? Because I want to respond to it, but I want to make sure I have the facts.
I didn't see his comment. Sorry,
okay.
I'd gotten too busy, but let me see if I could. Let's see. Craig Bussieri, we're looking for a Building 7 video.
It's right under that Tony Verali guy. It's like I commented and then some other guy attacked me and then Tim was there and then you commented.
There we go. So Tim said, and right before I was partially buried under the North Tower, there were 0 explosions, dead quiet except for the sound of pass alarms. Then one boom, thud, then another, and space between them gained momentum until 3, 4, or 5th it went down to a roar like 100 freight trains on my ass. Same things with Building 7. No preeminent explosions, not to mention 250,000 gallons of fuel. See, he still says that. Fuel in the basement of 7 for the emergency command center. So we just already talked about not even NIST supports the 250,000 gallons of fuel in Building 7. One thing, and Jerry and I have talked about this too, and it's been already talked about in the 9/11 Truth Movement. If you've seen the quarry explosions when they blast to be able to free up some more rock, when you time that many explosions together, it just ends up sounding like a roar. You can't hear the individual bam, 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 bam. Some guys did. Chief Ravullo, I think it was one of them that said it came down like bang, 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 bang. I have a list of probably 15 people that heard sounds like that. So I don't know. Maybe he was on the side of a building where he didn't, or he was so involved in it. I don't know.
So how do you respond to that?
I don't. Yeah.
You don't?
I would pick my battles, and that's not a battle worth fighting for. I kind of have him listening, and right now I'm just good with that because I think the only person that's going to be able to break through with Tim is another firefighter, and hopefully in time, which somebody shared. It looks like that you shared Raul Angulo's article. Fantastic. It's stuff like that. When he hears it from other firefighters, then maybe he'll be more considerate of the evidence.
So Craig won't actually come out and say stuff, but I'm not sure if you ever watch what he posts, but he posts stuff that's very similar to that guy, Nicholas DiVincenzo, who was also Rudy's friend. And Craig won't actually like come out and say full force, but he'll say stuff like question everything with boldness, and so he knows, but he's also not like Rudy Dent reincarnated. He knows it's bullshit, but but I'm still I thought Tim was on our side. That's why it confused me because I'm like, wait a second, like he's said on numerous occasions he doesn't agree with this, but he still, it's just annoying, because like
out of 49 to 51%, Tim Duffy's on the 49% side.
Yeah, exactly.
But you got to understand these guys don't want to be ostracized from their crowds, so yeah, it's a tough one. Thank you, Mikey. Let's go to Chuck.
Yeah. So I posted in the chat a pictorial essay I did, copying pasting images from news and YouTube. So I didn't think about energy weapon in the context of 9/11 until the Lahaina fires. And then I saw the connection between Lahaina fires and the signature of the melted cars, the toasted cars. So the fact that toasted cars show up at 9/11 is proof that a energy tech was applied on those cars, at least. And then on the matter of the buildings and the whole claim that thermite blew up the building, but then how that blowing up by thermite turned everything into dust. All the toilets, all the sinks, all the filing cabinets, all the steel structure, and all the concrete, all the glass. Everything was turned into dust. That's a fact. So
Right.
No, that's
not everything.
That's a total absolute categorical fact. I mean, there's stuff left over. There's chunks of metal.
Right. Well, you just said everything.
Yeah.
Well, I retract that. I retract my everything statement. That 95% seemingly has been turned into dust. Now, then there's the paper. No burning of paper. Absolutely, categorically. It was a cold event, technologically speaking. It was not this kinetic, high incendiary thermite thing, because people would have burned up to a crisp. Those people who survived the North Tower. Even theoretic, and then this idea of a collapse, of pancaking, absolutely categorically didn't happen. That language has no
even
place.
this doesn't even say it pancaked. Yes.
Okay, but that's what Dick Cheney said. He said pancake. That's the language they used right
and
out.
they retracted that. Yes.
Oh, bless their hearts. Okay.
Yep.
A little bit more credibility there. So I'm fresh from reading Judy Wood's book, and all I would say to you all that show vitriol to anybody who entertains what I just expressed, this idea of an exotic tech being applied. I would say lighten up, kind of give up on that, and allow space in your discourse for this exotic energy tech. Judy Wood is well-intentioned. I mean, she frames her mission to reveal the truth with the notion that this energy tech, that what we witness in the buildings being turned into dust, is powerful technology that we don't know about because it's a national secret. It's a state secret. They won't tell us. They won't reveal anything, absolutely categorically. That's their deal. We have to infer from what is happening on the ground. And Judy Wood does that very, very well. And it's not that hard of a read. It's a picture book. I didn't read any of the math calculations, of course, because those are meaningless to me. But it's not, I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's just where my take on it. I think, and as I said recently, TAP officially is, recognizing September 11th as a state crime against our democracy. That's our language. And I think that's kind of where we need to be in our movement, if we're going to have a movement. And I'd say we're a community of truthers, but truth people, but really, this is about getting us into forever wars. And they tricked us. They used this awesome tech. They completely hypnotized the nation. They've reduced us into, I don't know what we've been reduced to. We're in shock and awe. We've got PTSD. We are hypnotized, however you want to think about it. But that's my thoughts. So I just wanted to share that.
Thanks, Chuck. Okay. Mike Zarzano.
Hey, I first want to just say, Chuck, democracy is not a person. It can't be injured. The people of the United States of America is the injured party. That's who was assaulted. That's who was injured, not a democracy. We are a republic. Remember pledging allegiance in school? To the republic for which it stands, one nation. Oh, under God.
Okay.
Isn't that amazing? But anyways, I want to ask Jane Clark, Richard, and Mick. I think Mick left. I've been asking for months and months about whether or not affidavits were provided as exhibits in the petition for the grand jury by anyone. Firemen, architects, engineers, were there any affidavits provided whatsoever? And if so, how can they be obtained? Copies. I've been asking this for months, and I'm not getting any answers from any of them, including Barbara.
Barb did answer and said she didn't believe so. And you can see
No,
the 60
that's not what she
exhibits.
said. She said she would get back to me, and I've been waiting very patiently, and she's not done it. I've asked multiple times. I just can't understand why such a simple request of a very important event, petitioning for a federal grand jury, is so difficult and time consuming. This is bizarre. Anybody
Okay,
can
what I
give me
can
an
share
answer?
is what's
Well,
available
I'm not
on the
asking, Gene, I'm
website
not
is,
asking
and I'm
you.
going to keep talking,
I'm
is
not
that
asking you. I'm
on,
asking Jane,
hey,
Mick,
Mike,
or
this is
Richard.
my show, and I'm going to answer. And if they want to
Oh,
answer, they
okay.
can answer.
Yeah,
And
it's
the
your
answer
show. Go
is
ahead,
that,
Gene.
thank you. And what you can see, if you go to 911lawyers.org/evidence, where they made all 60 exhibits that were presented to the U.S. Attorney's Office in November 7th, 2018, this is what they received. And there are no affidavits in that I can see. Now, Jane or Richard, if you want to, feel free to answer that further.
But Gene, you're not the authority. That's why I would really want the answer from them. With
Well,
all
I'm not
due
hearing any
respect.
answer. So
I'm not the authority either, so I don't have an answer.
I just find this very strange that nobody knows whether this was done or not. Unbelievable. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. Sue Serpa. You're muted.
There we go. Okay, found my unmute. Yeah, what Chuck said, I think resonates in terms of crimes against democracy. Whether you want to call it a republic or democracy, I'm not going to nitpick on that, but Mike can nitpick if he wants. Anyway,
Words mean things,
it's
Susan.
a crime. It's a crime, and we know that it's a crime. But you know what the question I have, this again, I think I've said this before. It was a very 9/11 was a very complicated project, if you want to call it that. You know, many things happened on 9/11. Many methods I think were probably used, and you know, and I don't discount the idea of exotic weapons, but I just don't see proof of it. In terms of the cars, I'm wondering if white phosphorus could have caused those effects. So that's just my question. I don't know if anyone has looked into that and thought about it at all. But thank you.
That was used in the chemical attacks in
Israel used on Palestine.
well, no, I was thinking, was it Syria? Anyways.
I don't have an answer. I don't know if anybody else wants to answer Sue's question.
Oh, sorry. No, but Israel has used white phosphorus in Gaza and I believe in Lebanon over the years.
Yep.
And weird heavy metal weapons. And sorry, to make one little aside is we have a pretty good idea on some of the means that we know were used. Am I close to something exotic being used as part of that means of an explosive demolition? I am actually, right? I can't prove it, so it's almost pointless for me to speak about it. So you know what I mean? I want to keep an open mind, but I don't know how any of the things that we observe indicate a directed energy weapon. And the cars thing is, I know if you're starting fires with these weird space weapon, I guess I don't know where it's based, right? But okay, it's so precise it can take out the twin towers, but they randomly torch cars. No, those cars were set on fire from the extreme heat, you know, or something. We've seen that I've seen it in war zones. I've seen it in all sorts of things. So people take oddities from a huge soup of information and then they hold on to them. And Judy Wood crystallized some oddities into a book. And I think it is meant to divide and confuse people and also make us look crazy because other people, we're coming with a means that doesn't exist. We can't sort it out ourselves. Even the people who are fans of it, just you're not going to the public with that. It doesn't even work within the movement. So
Well,
yeah,
no,
but
and
yeah, sorry.
I got to go to the hands.
yeah, no, I'm just
Yep,
giving a
sorry.
quick response to that is like you can't go to court with that. You can't go to court with
Well,
a
they did,
mechanism
and it was thrown out.
that, okay, right, exactly. Well, that wasn't really it. But, I mean, they were suing the contractors, right? It
okay.
wasn't, yeah. It's kind of like they were pulling a little bit of a,
Yeah.
what was that?
Doopsie doodle.
And sorry, and not to sorry, go. I was just saying, when they give the evidence, they haven't get. If they would give us evidence, I'm happy to try to assess
Yes.
something, but it's so general.
Yes.
One of the big things that everyone liked was the spire, and then I located the video myself, and other people had already located it, it seems, I believe. But you know, the spire fell backwards in a way. You know, it fell down. We can talk about different things, but you're saying it was turned into dust. And sorry, that was just a visual anomaly, and I understand where you're coming from, but it's disproven. So, yeah, sorry, I'm done.
Yeah.
But
I mean, two people can stare at it and see two different things, unfortunately, but that's the way it is. Jane, what do you got?
Well, I'm coming from a place more as a layman, even though I do have an ancestral background of science in my history. So I have a inquisitive mind. But from a less technically point of view of expertise, I remain puzzled that what my takeaway from a lot of these discussions is that each of the, if you want to call it the DEW camp versus the nanothermite camp, each of them has a way of not addressing the evidence that each side has presented to be questions or worth looking into further. So, I mean, I guess if each side has reasonable, valid points of view of how to explain what happened. And I mean, let me try to just give two examples from the point of view of the nanothermite camp. How does directed energy explain the jettisoned beams of steel that got jettisoned out several hundred feet into other buildings? That's one.
Yep.
There may be there. I don't know if I have another one on that camp. Well, how does the nano on the other side? How does the nanothermite explain the paperless the paper that wasn't burned? And also, how does it explain the lack of debris? How does nanothermite explain the complete dissolving or so much dissolving of the material, you know, dustified concrete and not all the steel. I don't know if nanothermite can dustify steel. That's another question. Anyway, I just feel that both sides avoid addressing the valid explanations that the other side is offering. And so that's my more, I don't know if it's a bigger picture view, but I just still feel puzzled that there's so much limitation in the real debate about every aspect, you know, or all enough of the aspects of both sides of this ongoing controversy.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Jane. That statement has now caused a lot of hands to raise. So I'll get to the hands, but I just want to there's a common pitfall I think we all fall into here, that it has to be one mechanism that
Yeah.
caused this to happen. So there doesn't need to be camps of it has to be this is the only way. I believe that Stephen Jones, Jeff Fair, Niels Harrit showed that these red gray chips were absolutely in the dust. They have some active thermitic properties to them. They were used. I also believe that RDX, Fetzer had made a good case that from what we can find of the nanothermite, it doesn't possess enough pressure volume work to be able to eject a 4-ton steel piece of lattice, 600 feet. RDX would. Some of these impressions on the inside of the steel columns that Abel Sanastani, sorry, I tried the best I could there, had shown that there was some type of explosive effect that occurred in the buildings. So I don't know. Trying to stay in one camp saying this is the only mechanism that was used, I think is a mistake. That's all.
And there's a bunch of stuff we don't even know. So
if you guys don't mind, forgive me. I'm going to go to Richard and then I'll get back in the stack.
When Patty was here a couple of weeks ago, I spent maybe 10 minutes reviewing as much as I could in 10 minutes those points, Jane, and I hope you heard that, but I will reiterate for your benefit what I have said over the years in debates and what I will say next Saturday on Mixed Call when I have an hour to address these points. First of all, paper, when you run an airplane into a building, you're not only going to have explosions, but the ejections of millions of pieces of paper, all of which don't get burnt. You wouldn't expect every piece of paper to get burnt. If you have explosions traveling down the length of the building, the height from the point of plane impacts, you're going to have file cabinets that blow up and release papers. We wouldn't expect all those papers to be burned. Of course, they're going to go everywhere. What is powderized is 90,000 tons of concrete in each of the towers. That's not steel dust. That's concrete powder. What can powderize 90,000 tons of concrete in each of the towers? Well, we know from ASTM C856 that concrete turns to powder at 2,200 degrees and even 1,500 degrees Fahrenheit. We have twice those temperatures available to us in the incendiaries. We also know that the steel did not turn to dust. There's 100,000 tons of each in each building that was turned, that was ejected laterally outside the towers, and it is shown in the aerial photographs all around in a 1,400 to 1,500 foot diameter around each of the towers. The steel did not turn to dust. The dust has been analyzed by many agencies. They find no steel dust in the dust. Right. So the steel was not turned to dust. I hope that helps.
Thanks, Richard. Jane, any last comment?
I look forward to your further exploration of this on Mix Saturday Zoom meeting. Thank you. Yes. I mean, it just keeps doing this, and that's part of why we're all, keep exploring this.
Yep. We won't get anywhere if we don't talk to each other. And doing it in a group environment, I think, is valuable because the room will get the feel on what's authentic and genuine and real and true. So
thank you, Jane. Yes.
Thanks, Jane. Jack? I'm going to get through these hands and then we're going to wrap up because it's already 7 o'clock.
Or maybe this could be the around the room at the same time.
Maybe. I don't know.
Just addressing the first I believed that thermite was used and high-powered explosives and possibly mini nuke, and directed energy, if it was used, would be way down on the list, at least 4. But what I noticed in the Marines is they use anything they can to win a battle. But
I think this goes along with the plane thing. If I may, real quick, Jack, when they said, if you're planning to take these buildings down, one, you're not going to rely on some hokey pokey flyers that just, that's going to cause something to happen that still wouldn't bring the towers down. But you're not going to rely on one mechanism to bring the towers down. I'm sure you had multiple mechanisms in place. This building has to come down. So anyway,
right.
Go ahead.
So anyway, concerning how would the directed energy get its energy, and without even moving the needle on the amount of electricity used in the city. And I've actually seen, used to lead tours of the Plasma Fusion Center where they research fusion, and they had their device that would do that. It was an old city generator. They used to power a whole city, and they had it attached to a big flywheel, and it was driven by a big, large diesel generator, and it was put in a 53-foot trailer, and they actually would have 2 or 3 of these 50-foot trailers. And so they run the diesel all night, maybe the day before and all night, and slowly get this huge weight spinning, at 20 or 30,000 RPM. And then when they want electricity, they just turn the switch on and get whatever electricity is in the generator, whatever power is in the generator, and that'll slow it down, to 1,000 RPM, and then hopefully it'll build up so they can do a second shot, or they hope it'll build up. And the other thing in the other trailers that I also touched, and people said, don't touch that, it'll kill you, and is these huge capacitors. They build capacitors that would fill up a 53-foot trailer. And they're the same thing. They slowly charge them with energy, and over 2-3 days. And then when they need the electricity, they throw the switch, and a huge amount of electricity is released. It's very dangerous.
Yep.
Thanks,
Jack. I don't know if anybody's familiar with this. I got a theory now. I'm going to throw one out there. This isn't real. This is real, but my theory isn't real. Does anybody know what this device is here?
The flux capacitor.
No. 1.2 gigawatts. No. Tesla actually invented what was called an earthquake machine. And the story goes that in his apartment building, he affixed this thing to a steel column and set it in motion. And it basically got the resonant frequency of the building's structure. And next thing you know, the tenants were complaining up in the top because things were falling off the walls. It was slowly starting to get the whole building to oscillate, kind of like the Golden Gate Bridge back in the day where the storm happened to just made it fall apart completely. But if he would have kept this thing running, it may have just totally shaken the entire building apart. I don't know why I went there, but I did. So who knows? Thank you, Jack. Jetty from Scotland.
Yeah, hopefully I'm coming through loud enough now. The Tesla had to move closer to an electrical substation to get the amount of power that it required to do his experiments, by the way. That's a bit telling. But on the direct energy weapon thing, I'm finding it a bit ironic for people to turn around and say to me, you've got to consider this, to presume that I haven't and other people haven't went and looked at what the evolution of the whole direct energy weapon thing from when Judy Woods came on the scene and Fetzer and all the rest of them. I talked to these people when they came on the scene. I looked at the evidence that they had and I considered it with an open mind. But it comes down to what is viable. What is a viable mechanism for what we see happening? But the irony of being asked to consider this weapon that people don't understand, the irony is that they haven't looked at the towers and understood the structure and said, well, does this make sense in context of the structural reactions that this tower is having to whatever weapon is acting on it? And they haven't looked at that. And that's where you have to start. You have to start with what you can see and what you can see happening and saying, okay, what is a viable cause for that? And one of the questions that I would have is, in terms of the structural reactions of the building, is there anything that you suppose a direct energy weapon is doing that couldn't be achieved by known explosives and incendiaries? And the answer inevitably is no. For example, in a core-based demolition for the North Tower, what you're doing is you're creating a differential between, if the core's coming down, what is it doing? It's pulling on the slab. It's pulling all of that rebar through the slab, and the slab is moving from a fixed point on the perimeters and making them axially misaligned.
Yeah.
And okay, maybe everybody doesn't understand what I'm saying there, but if you want to come out and say this magic weapon that I don't understand did this, then the least you can do is to go and look at the building and try and understand the structure and see what if your theory stands up to that context. And people inevitably who are want to spout the direct energy weapon thing haven't done that. And if it meant that much to you and you really believed that that was a viable mechanism for this, you would have. If you can understand a weapon that you can't define, that you can't say how it works, you can't say what effect it really has, if you can't do that, then surely you should look at the building, but none of you have. So I'm done with it. It's disinfo. That's what it is. It's disinformation bullshit. And I'm done with not calling it what it is. It is absolute fucking...
Language.
Sorry. It is absolute nonsense. And whoever said language there, go hump a lap.
That was me. I'm just giving you a little warning.
Yeah, well, you're not there. You're not there. What? In all honesty, Chuck, right? You can be as gentle and as nice as you like, but I'm calling bullshit for what it is, and that's what it is. It is bullshit, disinformation. I'm done with it.
Thank you, Jerry. Mike Zazano.
Hey, Gene, I'm glad I finally have something I agree with you about. I want to really celebrate this. I agree with you that multiple weapons, tactics, strategies were used in the demolition of the buildings. The model that we should look at is Northwoods. That's the ultimate false flag that was created. And if you read that in detail, you will see it was a multifaceted operation with many, many tactics. Anyways, I just wanted to let you know, I totally agree with you. And we're just doing nothing but going in circles arguing about this because both sides have much merit. Now, let me just say this. I was accused by Sue Serpa of being nitpicking, and we're a republic. If anybody doesn't understand that, they really need to go back to elementary history lesson or civics, because it's the rule of law that a republic is governed by. Words mean things. A democracy is not what we are.
Right.
The people in America have been injured by the crime of 9/11. And that's what needs to be declared. Now, Richard brought up the concrete issue about the heat, and he's right about that. But there were only isolated areas where this heat existed. 3/4, 7/8 of the building floors were not affected by the heat. We saw no concrete slabs. I don't remember ever seeing concrete slabs in any of the debris. That in itself is very strange. Furthermore, it's very strange also that nobody brought up the fact that yesterday Bob Grenier revealed his study and his analysis of a very large amount of dust from 9/11 that was provided to him by Patricia Casaza. And he clearly demonstrated and declared that evidence of metals was in the dust, the iron, the steel, aluminum. And he's not finished with it. He's going to further elaborate on this, but I found that to be very convincing yesterday, and I'm just shocked that nobody brought that up today. So I think that's pretty much it. Thank you, Gene. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike. And I just want to, I'll say this definition a million times because I learned it and I latched onto it. We are a representative republic that uses the democratic process. And what that means is we elect representatives, and then that we hope that those representatives represent us as a democracy. So the democracy really is in the representatives, the congressmen and the senators in a democratic process trying to, I'm just repeating myself, representing us in a collective means. So
well,
if we
the
were,
military manuals declare differently, Gene, and we really need to pay
absolutely
attention
not
to history. They warned us that we are not a democracy. Why did the military?
Okay. And please stop talking over me. Again, what I said did not say that we are a democracy. It is a representative republic that uses the democratic process. We're done. Thank you. Craig, what do you got?
Yeah, of course, I'm from Canada, so I don't live in a republic, but I think Canada is described as a parliamentary democracy. Maybe, I don't know, is that true, Sandra? I think that's what we call it. I think that's what we call ourselves. But anyway, I've never liked the state crimes against democracy label anyway. It seems like even if whether the U.S. is a democracy or not, it seems like democracy is not the. I agree with Mike on that. It's not the democracy, not the victim. Now, I just want to, on this whole directed energy weapons thing, the thing that my angle on this, and this is why I kind of don't plunge too much into the debate, because I always think about my main concern is what is going to advance the cause, and to me, it's a political end that I'm interested in. I'm not interested in the intellectual exercise of exactly which mechanisms were used. So I think it's fine to have these discussions, I guess, among ourselves, but I do fear that it does drain a lot of time and energy with very little benefit. I don't see very much benefit, and I would also put the directed energy weapon thing in the same category, although different but somewhat similar, to the Pentagon and Shanksville, because we have people in the truth movement that are trying to push us. They're trying to convince us what parts of the official story are true, instead of trying to focus on exposing the lies in that story. And I even though it's a little bit different from the directed energy weapons debate, it's similarly problematic. In fact, it's more problematic because I question sort of what is behind those those efforts in the case of the Pentagon and Shanksville. Now, I wanted to mention okay, now I found Jerry's comment very interesting because he kind of has scolded me a few times in the past for being as blunt as it sounds like he just was. And so I just kind of found that a little bit interesting and wondering why he can call it disinfo and why he can call it bullshit when I say something is disinfo, or I don't know if I've called it bullshit, but certainly I could point to a lot of bullshit. Why am I scolded for that? And I think you should be able to call it bullshit, frankly. That's fine. I have no problem with that. But I don't think I should be castigated. And I did want to mention in that whole thing that Carl showed, that document from 1915, one thing that stuck out to me that I found interesting was the idea of erasing social definitions. And boy, that made me think of what we're the whole woke thing that we've been experiencing the last decade, where social definitions seem to be all under attack. So that kind of resonated. And I don't know if there's anything. Oh, the last thing I wanted to mention is, this is just a question. When Jerry mentioned before about the cladding on the corners of the towers, I mean, I understand why that might argue against the directed energy weapons, but what I'm kind of curious, and I don't have an opinion on this, I'm just curious why the explosives in the building wouldn't have blown out from the corners as well, if that's just kind of, aluminum cladding that wouldn't have any sort of strength to it. So I just would throw that out for if he wants to comment.
Thank you, he, him.
It depends on the day, Gene. Sometimes
Yeah,
I'm
right.
him, sometimes
Hey, David
I'm
Chandler, one of your best friends, right? Yeah, he did a
Yeah.
good piece on the corners.
Who did that?
David Chandler. You
Well.
can see the corners blowing out. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. If you
One of
actually, there's a famous video from West Street that you can see, and it shows the west facade of Building 1, and you can clearly see the corners ripping out ahead of the rest of the building coming down. Talking to Tony Zambodi, he says, this is in a phone call Sandra and I had with him, so you only have to remove so many floors, and then eventually the weight would be able to continue destroying the building, but you would, from his perspective, and I believe I'm quoting him correctly, he said you'd have to cut the corners so that each of the facades would pedal out like we saw. So I don't know. At some point you can remove so many floors, let's say 10 floors, that dynamic force coming down would continue to destroy the building, according to Tony Zambodi.
Although I thought that it was, the idea was that the building was being blown apart, and therefore there wasn't any weight to press down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it would have come to a standstill.
Well, so from what he said on that physics pamphlet that they put out with AE 9/11 Truth, the amount of floors that were impacted on 9/11, that would not have been enough force to do that, and it would have come to rest after, I think, 2 floors. But if you continue to remove a certain amount of resistance below it, it would have continued to. You're using the weight of the building. Demolition is using
As long as you remove the resistance.
Yeah, a certain amount of it, so that the overcoming force would continue to go through that. But anyways, let's go to Al.
Yeah, I'm with Jerry on his interpretation, and I've never been able to understand Jews. And I have this image of a Godzilla movie, and I don't know where the machine would emanated from, but it just never made any sense to me. And I think it would have to be a huge piece of equipment to generate directed energy, and that's my thought. But Jerry was much more eloquent in presenting, I think, what is basically a bullshit story about directed energy weapons. So that's my take. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. And I do want to make it a point that I've been accused of being a gatekeeper, and everyone, it's like, we're just doing this podcast, Sandra and I, just to keep 9/11 alive, keep people talking about it, to give something for activists to talk about, to show how the activism is being done. In no way am I a judge of the greater 9/11 truth movement. I hold no authority for anything. So because I have an opinion on something where I don't believe it was directed energy weapons, I'm not a gatekeeper. I have no power to gatekeep. I hear what I hear, and this is what resonates with me and what doesn't resonate with me. So don't shoot the messenger. And I'm great about talking about it, but if it doesn't, if the glove doesn't fit, you must have quit. I don't know. Thank you. Susie? She's with Susie. You there? She's getting there. She's finding it. Let me help you. Oh, you got it.
Hey, how is everyone? Forgive me, I'm driving and stopping and trying to listen and hitting dead spots, but I wanted to address 3 things. With Susan Serper regarding the phosphorus, and how that might have been used. I know as a result of our trip to Malaysia during the Criminalized War Conference, that there were scientists there that claimed that phosphorus was being used against Palestinians as well as Muslims in Syria. by the Obama administration. So it's been around since World War II. So as far as in advancing that technology, I suppose that could be something, and why a lot of people got sick as well. The other one is regarding the steel turning to dust type of issue. The two largest components, the heaviest components inside the World Trade Center towers, other than the columns, were the elevator traction machines and the 30,000 pound transformers, of which they claimed they didn't find anything at the bottom of the towers. And that's troublesome to me, because when I questioned that, I was told that there was a lot of metal that was all instantly credited to scrap metal, that they wouldn't even test for anything or try to identify those components. There was a lot of copper in there, a lot of steel. And so that's baffling to me that they would take.
Flushing the toilet on the equator.
Whoops. Go ahead, Susie. Sorry.
Yeah, so that's a baffling thing to me. And the other question I have is for Richard regarding this proposal to Senator Ron Johnson is how are we trying to get around the what do you call it? The chain of custody issue that really hurt the case in the beginning. I know that the Millett paper has a problem with their ignition flaw of thermite, in the paint. They can't explain that. But how are we going to get around that as far as the data analysis that we absolutely need? There's an act out there, I understand, that that these things have to be followed. Do you have?
You cut out in the middle of your talk, for me at least, Susie. Could you repeat it?
Yes. So around this data act or something that we have, let me just find it here because I jotted it down. Let's see. It was with regard to oh my God, I can't find it now. I'm sorry. Anyway, how are we getting around the chain of custody flaw that we have in acquiring the dust? How are we getting around that? Because apparently it's a requirement of this data act that is the guidelines that are supposed to be followed.
I don't know that there's a flaw. The chain of custody was documented by the team of 8 international scientists led by Niels Harrit and Steve Jones.
No, I meant obtaining it from civilians. The very first part.
They documented who they got it from, how they got it, and where it was from.
Okay, but wasn't that denied in the court?
No.
It wasn't. Okay, good. Thanks for clarifying that.
Sure.
Sorry, guys. I didn't mean to take so long.
No, you're good, Susie. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
The court never looked at the the evidence. What they said is that we didn't have standing. We being architects, engineers, and family members. So I just wanted to respond to Mike Zarzano. Mike, you said there was heat only in a portion of the floors of the Twin Towers. I don't agree with that. I think there was heat throughout that turned those steel beams to noodle shapes. Lots of heat. And Chuck, I think the airplane blew out the papers. Most of the papers came from that event, not an hour later when the incendiaries and explosives picked up. And then, Chuck, you said there's no pile of floors at the bottom, and I agree. There's no pile of floors. They were pulverized in midair. the floors were pulverized by high energy explosives and or incendiaries, both of which are adequate mechanisms to pulverize concrete. DEW.
How did the survivors survive the North Tower? Why didn't they get burned up?
There's a few men that were miraculously saved. Nobody knows how they survived under any mechanism.
Right. True.
From ladder 6.
Thank you.
And you're
I also want to
satisfied
say,
with that mystery?
I would.
So, sorry, I don't think it's much of a mystery. We're referring to the people who survived in the stairwell, right?
Yeah.
You know, whether it's standard explosives or not, whatever we want to say, right? They blew I would say they blew the F out of the building right above them, right? There was a huge multi-story lobby, so there wasn't really places to even hide their devices, which is what I believed was used. Because of that, they kind of left that. That's why you had some core columns sticking out of the ground. So basically there was not much to come directly down on them because it was blown out in a huge radius. So, I mean, actually I think it makes perfect sense. And then the fact that we have thermitics being used in explosives, that's a very small fraction of the total volume of the building. So no one is contesting that it's a raging inferno. Like Richard, I'd probably take some pause before you talk about the temperature that could, destroy concrete. I don't think there was that much heat. But there was thermitics. I mean, we saw molten metal pouring out of the South Tower. I mean, that was right in our faces. We have sulfidated eutectic steel. We have iron-rich microshears. So sorry, I'm going on a little rant here, but
wait, how could you
yep.
say that, Mike? There was evidence of 3,000 and 4,000 degree temperatures, and then you said there's not. So I don't understand what you're talking.
No, the whole building wasn't like that temperature, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean? It was a hot cloud. Like, I believe there were thermitics in nanothermite used, I guess. I guess what I'm trying to say is, that's why paper survived. The entire thing was not that temperature, right? I guess.
I don't know. I'm not sure. The clouds were extremely hot. We have a dozen witnesses of hot clouds. It was not a cold event. We have evidence from Bechtel and many, many, many others that temperatures exceeding 2,800 degrees. I'm guessing that it was consistently hot throughout the height of the building.
I want to add also at this.
Yeah, people didn't burn up. Richard, people did not burn up.
So, but the Surfside condominiums that collapsed, there were survivors in that. So just whether it was a demolition or a building would collapse, you're still going to have survivors. And then if it was directed energy weapons being used, how did the survivors survive in the stair towers if it was directed energy weapons? Like, it's the same question. It's kind of a weak question. But
hey, Gene, who purportedly owned a unit in the Surfside condominiums, and who were the search experts that were brought in from Israel to search the rubble?
Yes, it was IDF. But we're getting sidetracked. I kind of want to. Let's go to your point.
John McAfee.
Yeah, John. Yes. It's now 7:25. I'm way over. Let's get through these last hands, if you don't mind. We'll go around the room. Carl, did you have something else?
Yes, I want to run a name by, especially the Flight 93 interested parties. Does anyone recognize the name Glenn Stanish? Stanish. He was a professional pilot.
Stanish rings a bell.
He what?
Glenn Stanish. Okay, he was the author. He was the author of "Where is the Wreckage of UAL 93?" I don't have a link right now to that article, but he was chosen to write the foreword to Bolin's book "Solving 9/11: The Deception That Changed the World." So Glenn Stanish should be a name known to everyone concerned about the evidence of flight, or the lack of evidence, of UAL 93. Thank you.
Thank you. Ross?
Yeah, how am I coming out? Is it clear?
Good. Yep.
Okay, good. Just quickly, I put in the chat. I think the main general basic global questions that are going to have to be answered by the winning hypothesis, I'll call it that, whatever the consensus ends up being in the future as to how these buildings were demolished. those questions that I put in the chat will are general and address those categories that haven't been addressed yet by very many hypotheses. I'm working on it on mine, and I think that I could address a lot of details, but of course we certainly don't have time for that tonight. So all the details that people were bringing up tonight, but I would ask one question that's been I've been thinking about quite a bit is the dust studies, Harrett and Jones, and the variety of different dust studies that were done. There were a few different ones. The Lee study. Do we know how did those studies come into being? Who contracted them? Was it A&E that hired Stephen Jones, for example, or do we know how those studies came into being?
I do not, Richard.
Well, they did their own work completely outside of any oversight or involvement of AE 9/11 Truth. This was Stephen Jones and Niels Harrett together, and then bringing on Jeff Farr from the Salt Lake City Church. So hope that helps.
And I know there's other people that were saying, even Mike Figa has access to certain tools, scientific tools to be able to analyze the dust. So if anybody has dust, let us know, because we can still analyze it.
That's good.
Another point that somebody had made, who's here, who's usually here that doesn't talk much, medicine, Ground Zero, that analyzed dust.
Sean Nagel?
Sean Nagel also said just be aware that any nanothermite or red gray chips that's in this dust since 2001 has lost its potency now. So it's getting harder and harder to test for these materials. Anyway. Hey, Ross, keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I'm glad to hear that from Richard, because I just was not trying to figure out, and it would be good to hear from them, from Stephen and Niels, for example, and the Lee group. I mean, so, did they just come? They woke up one day and decided, hey, I think I'll study the dust samples of the World Trade Center, and we'll get dust samples from people that were in the vicinity at the time. I mean, there had to be some kind of mechanism that got them going on that. And so I'm wondering if it might be good to know what that was. But anyhow, the dust studies, I think those are the critical things that should be in the PSI paper. In terms of the empirical evidence, I think that's the most important thing, that above and beyond the seismic evidence that Raoul talks about, and the other very important aspects that 9/11 Institute studies for International Institute for the 9/11 study is doing. Those points are very important. So, but the dust, I'm hoping we get to really quantify and characterize that going forward. So, okay.
But
Thanks,
Ross, everybody should know that Mick has invited a complete, a sort of a debate on nanothermite between those who oppose it and those who have promoted it. And I believe, based on Niels and Stephen's limited response, that they're willing to engage in that. So that would be a new and a very important development. You have more on that, Gene?
No, but Brian makes a comment in the chat that says, I think Lee was restrained by the RJ Lee was retained by the owners of the Deutsche Bank building to document the damage to the building from the dust. Yeah. Thank you, Jerry. RJ, yes. RJ Lee. I don't know about that, but maybe we could find that out. I look forward to that. That'll be interesting too. Let's talk through it. Thank you, Richard. Magnus, and then we're going around the room.
Wow, thank you, Gene. I was just wondering, can you please look at the last picture I sent in the chat? It's very important, because I was just wondering how flying metal can fly over paper and just hit the stairs and just burn metal like this. Just look at the picture and then we close the room.
All right, let's see this picture.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, there's going to be flaming stuff falling down. I find interesting. I was on the road last week for my company going to do a CM interview out on the other side of Pennsylvania, and I find that we drove past Shanksville and Shawnee Lake and all that, and drove through an area called New Baltimore, and there were reports in New Baltimore, 10 miles away from the Shanksville crash site, where there were clothing, plane insulation, and papers that floated away. Now, if this plane allegedly struck the ground, or if it was blown up in midair, or was shot with a missile, if the entire plane became a raging inferno, not all the papers got burned up, not all the clothing got burned up, not all the plane insulation burned up. There was still stuff that came through. So saying that I don't understand why there's papers, it's kind of another weak kind of statement. No disrespect to anybody that brought that up, just saying if something explodes, there's going to be things that aren't singed that make it out. And I don't think the passport counts as one of those.
Thank you.
But isn't there a danger there, Gene, that you're using something from the official story to sort of challenge something else that doesn't align with the official story?
That's
like
why
the idea. Sorry.
That's why I had said, there's 3 different theories of what happened. It actually crashed in the ground, it got shot down, or as Ray says, there was a bomb on board. Regardless of any 3 of those 3 items, there's still going to be materials that float away that are pull.
But it still assumes the destruction of a large aircraft, which I would dispute. So it's accepting a part of the official story, which says that a large aircraft purporting to be Flight 93 was destroyed. And I would argue that we don't have evidence of that, or not enough evidence of it.
Now you confuse me. You're saying no plane?
I'm saying that I don't believe a large commercial airliner was destroyed in Pennsylvania at all. I mean, I don't think we have evidence. We have, things that floated down to the lake, but we don't know how they got there or where they came from. Yep. We can be darn certain that it didn't crash in a field. And as far as it being shot down, I've said this to you before, but my big issue with that is, if the planes are not being hijacked, why would you need to shoot down? Why would you need to shoot it down? And then why would you need a fake crash scene a few miles away from the real crash scene? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, fair question. I get it. All right, let's go around the room. Carl, you're starting it off. What do you got?
Yes, in chat, I put a link to the PDF of Bolin's Solving 9/11. Also, I put a link to the PDF of the entire book in German from 1915 by Nahum Goldman, The Spirit of Militarism. Do you read German? Yes, Sandra does, right?
Sandra does, yeah.
Okay.
She'll read that tonight.
Well, very good. And I would suggest we would be well served by directing our focus from the starting point of all agreeing that there were explosive or incendiary charges pre-positioned in all 3 towers, 1, 2, and 7, and that could not have been done by radical Islam. And so if we work from that point, and our initial focus should be, well, who could have done that? Who had access? Who benefited? And rather than we bounce all over the place, instead of pursuing a solution to the dilemma. And again, I'd like to ask Craig McKee specifically, have you ever read Bolin's Solving 9/11, or was it on the forbidden book list of everybody?
I want to go around the room here.
No, well, no, I mean, it's a fair question.
He didn't read it. All right, we're good. He didn't read it. All right.
No, I did read it. Wait a minute.
You did read it.
Let's not give him the wrong answer. I have read it, and I own a copy of it, Carl.
Have you forgotten what it says?
Well, I'm sure I've forgotten some things. I read it
probably
take 10 years ago.
Take it off the bookshelf.
Well, why not?
Right.
I agree.
Oh my God!
Thank
can
you.
we stop telling people what to read?
Yeah,
Thank you.
All right.
Oh,
Thank you.
chill out,
What
Sandra.
to think? What to say?
All right.
We have no direction. We need direction.
I think we can all agree it wasn't fire, and we're going to argue forever about what exactly the mechanism or mechanisms were, and that's not our burden of proof. the government has not given us enough evidence that they're responsible for lying to us and not telling us the truth. And we all need to work together and say, you guys tell us what was used, even though we know they're not going to tell us what was used.
The government is occupied territory.
Yes,
Gene.
I agree.
And we
That's
just
no
spent
problem.
2 hours talking about evidence and none about strategy, activism. I'd love to know what anyone did for 9/11 in the last week. Barb said it should be a great question to ask every week.
All right.
During the round, no, but really,
During
the
round
table,
yep.
yeah.
Okay.
Here.
If you can
Excellent
fit
point. You got my vote.
I'll start off, and as we're going around the room, this past week, I've written a couple letters to people, emails, and I continue to use my business cards and stickers at gas pumps and anywhere. I'll get my gas and leave did you know a third tower fell? And then slap a sticker on the gas tank. And yeah, that's my little kind of thing. Go ahead, Sue. What do you got?
There we go. So I have to leave soon, so I wanted to start off going around the room if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
Okay. So Boston 9/11 Truth. We have one of our activists who's handing out literature to MIT students. So we'll get hopefully a report on that pretty soon. And we're also planning on being at the Esplanade for the 4th of July for the Boston Pops and the fireworks. Let's see, on June 4th, we're going to have one of our own, Richard Krishnamoorthi. And June 11th, even though I said we're doing this once a month, we're going to have June 11th. Fran Schur, again, talking about the psychology but more specifically about, how groups are run and how to be more cohesive. So I think and we're planning on the aerial banner again this year.
Nice.
And also handing out literature since 9/11 is a weekday. We're going to go to the State House and go inside and pass out literature to our state reps. All right, so there we go.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Sue.
Let's go to Richard before we lose him. Richard, anything for the group wrapping up?
Nothing for me. Thanks so much, you guys, for being here.
How's Crime Scene to Courtroom 6?
Good. I've got the first 2 sections done. I expect tonight to have them ready for my reviewers. So that's good news.
Yeah.
And waiting for the other 2 sections of episode 6. So we've included in there the investigation, or the flawed investigation of the official story, and the direct destruction of evidence, foreknowledge of the building's collapse, and then the experts' conclusions.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Back in order. Jane, anything for the group?
No, thank you. I'm good tonight.
Thank you, Jane. Brian, anything for the group, sir? Whoop, you're muted.
The past week, I've been doing what I always do, which is internet activism. I post it. There's been a lot on Facebook lately. There's this guy who gives these short lectures, and then we're in the comment fields. Susie has been in there too. Very helpful. And I post at Quora.com, and over the years, I have amassed 32.5 million views of my posts, mostly about 9/11. And also I engage in debate in the comment sections, except the debunkers won't debate me anymore because I always smash them.
I have been seeing your comments and the some of the social media posts. I do appreciate them. And
Thank you.
I appreciate that Brian's just trying to be succinct. Somebody might make a statement like, hey, Israel wired up the buildings. Well, there's nothing hard evidence that says that. Yeah, we see these boxes that have this number, BB18, but none of that'll stand up in court. So
they're
it's
fuses. Those are fuse boxes.
Yeah, it's fuse holder. Well, they're lug nuts for fuse holders, so they're not even fuses. So, but it's trying to be more accurate on how we present information. So it's iron sharpening iron, and I appreciate you, Brian, for that. Thank you.
Facts matter, and I stick to facts.
Thank you, sir. Let's go to JB. Anything for the group, Mr. Georgia?
I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Craig, anything for the group?
Yeah, just quickly, we're having our monthly 9/11 and other deep state crimes teleconference meeting on Wednesday. And anybody that wants to get the agenda, or if you're not signed up, it's 911teleconference.substack.com. We have a gentleman named, who I don't know personally, Cheryl Curtis organized this, but a gentleman from New York named Eric Rassi, who apparently was a 9/11 activist going back to the earlier days. We're sort of awaiting his. I've got a bio from him, but I'm still awaiting a bit of a description of what he's going to talk about, because I'm going to be putting out the agenda hopefully tonight. So,
Isn't that Deb Lee's friend? Deb Lee's friend? No,
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't
That
know.
sounds like his name.
I'm going into this one pretty blind as to his, what he's going to talk about. But anyway, that's happening on Wednesday, so we all are welcome. And I just want to make a comment. Something Carl said just kind of made me think of, the idea of the explosives being pre-planted, or planted, as another way of putting it. It does like the directed energy idea does suggest something that could sort of happen from the outside, like at the time that the buildings, the same day kind of thing, whereas explosives in the building require a lot of preparation. So my point being that the directed energy weapon angle kind of opens the door to something that was from the outside, as opposed to something requiring insider cooperation, which when I think about the Pentagon, I think that's why I think that's so important, because any kind of staging that took place there had to be by the government, and that's why I think that's so important. And it makes me, anyway, I just drew the connection between the two things in my mind, that explosives in the building is more proof of an inside job than something that might have come from the outside.
Well, just to respond, since I was named in your comment, at the Pentagon, it could have very well been contractors or a limited number of Pentagon officials who provided access, or, for example, to contractors who positioned explosives. And what was the second point? The first thing you mentioned.
Just about the pre-plant, about how directed energy weapons could be.
Right. Well.
Yeah.
What kind of entities could have potentially used directed energy? Only the most sophisticated governmental or intelligence military entities, but there's no indication that directed energy was used at Building 7, is there? That's simply
no. I'm certainly not arguing for directed energy weapons. I'm just
right.
Well, they do claim that they were
do
used
claim,
at Building 7 also.
I think it's pure diversionary.
Yep.
Well, Fred points out something really important. If directed energy weapons were used, I also believe that they believe that it's from the outside of the building. Well, if so, then how does it create these explosions floor by floor, all the way down from the point of plane impacts that you can clearly see? What is the beam moving floor by floor down, and how does it create
how does it eject multi-ton steel beams laterally for hundreds of feet?
John Cole makes this evident in one of his reports, that if it was directed energy weapons being an outside force, you would see exterior damage to the facade, and we don't see that before. What we see is energy going from inside the building to outside the building, not the opposite. And I think that's a fantastic point.
And can I just add quickly that, this actually just came back in my head. The idea of, this, that directed energy weapons it kind of lets the inside job part of it off the hook a little bit. I had the same feeling about the issue of remote control versus human pilots that the International Center, their study that they did, because it's kind of like, it's in other words, remote control does not prove who did it. Whereas, you know what I mean? If the whole thing was kind of, if things were faked about the flights, and particularly the Pentagon and Shanksville, then that had to be prepared in advance. Whereas, anyway, I'm just, maybe that doesn't make sense. Actually, I got to think about that a bit more.
Yeah, it does prove who did it. Remote control proves it's the government that did it.
Yeah. Which government, Richard?
Didn't Dov Zakheim have something to do with remote control?
Yes,
Yeah.
we did.
Yeah, it was all planned in advance.
Rabbi Zakheim, yeah.
All right, we're digressing again. Let's, Mr. Norway, anything for the group?
Oh, no, thank you, everyone, and have a great week. And go to richardgage911.org or 911firefighters.org or 911c2c.org. I am a YouTuber and downloading videos every time and showing them to firefighters. And it's very busy times on the street, but I'm still trying, Gene.
And who's the greatest of the great, Magnus?
Richard Gage.
Thank you,
I
Magnus.
love Gene and Sandra too.
Thank you. 2 thumbs up. Mike Sarzano, anything for the group, sir?
Yes, Jane Milliken asked a very good question earlier, and I asked the same question many years ago when I first started considering directed energy. And when you look at the event and you see the lateral propulsion as the building is going down, and this is explained in a laboratory with John Hutchinson. And Jane, if you want to witness this experimentation by John Hutchinson, he's got several videos all over YouTube and Rumble. Just type in his name or put in Hutchinson effect, and you can watch him with electronic devices make metal bend, move, elevate, move quickly. I mean, it really is astonishing. And I'm of the opinion, I'm not here to promote do, but I am of the opinion, like Gene, there were multiple methods used. And in regard to the BB-18 fuse holders, those are
power
made
feed lugs. BB-18s are power feed lugs.
Yeah, they're fuse holders. It's made by a company named.
No. They are
Gene,
not
let
fuse
me
holders.
let me speak.
No. You're not going to say something inaccurate.
Well, here's what I'm going to say. Lytel is the company that made them. Lytel is commonly known for over 40 to 50 years providing military explosive technology to the military. So go figure, okay?
Okay, so let's get this accurate for everybody. Here we go.
Yeah, check out the company, Lytel.
Okay, we will. Here it is, Lytel, littlefuse.com. BB-18, pointed right here.
I looked it up.
Okay, then you would know that it's a power feed lug that would fit recommended fuse holders. This is for a panel, a fuse panel, like a breaker panel. You put these power feed lugs. Look, BB-18, it's a power feed lug. You basically stick a wire in there and tighten it, and it holds the wire.
Yep, I know exactly what it is.
It's not a blasting cap. It's not a fuse
Never
holder.
Said it was, Gene. Those are your words, not mine.
You just said that BB-18 was a fuse holder, Mike. It is not a fuse holder. It's a power feed lug.
The company is well known to provide military supplies for special operations with explosives. Case closed.
You know what else BB-18 could be? According to this electrical supplier, it could be, oh, look, it is a floor-mounted box support that holds up receptacles. That's what it could be. Talking to Dave Cole, it could be napkin holders. We have no idea. This is all speculative.
Yeah, but it's well known. Lytel is a military provider for explosive tech. Wonder why.
All right, thank you. Woof. Yeehaw. Who's next? Jerry, anything for the group? Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
apologies for my earlier frustration, but the whole direct energy weapon thing just makes us look fringe, stupid, badly researched, saying something impossible did it, and all it achieves is it closes the door to anybody who looks at 9/11 truth generally to say these people are crazy and I'm not getting into this and I don't want to be associated with them. And that's exactly what it's intended to do, in my opinion. Thank you very much for the discussion.
Thank you, Jerry. One thing that Bob Greenyer said at the end of his program before he even got into the evidence was that it took him 8 years to explain the technology to his other professional friends. If it takes you 8 years to explain how something works, to get people to understand, there's a saying that if you can't explain something to a 5-year-old, then you obviously don't understand it well enough yourself. So he better be able to explain it in simple terms. Where are we at? Andrew doesn't have a mic. I think I got it. Did I get everybody? If I didn't, forgive me. Everybody jumped around.
You got Susie?
Did I get Susie?
Yeah, you didn't get me, Ross.
Ross, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. So, talk about activism. I've been over the last month just basically irrationally obsessed with it. And I think I'll have news soon that going to lead it towards a rational direction, which I think is the ultimate success. You start out with an irrational idea, which may seem irrational to most people, but rational somehow to yourself. And then, you have a lot of doubt and self-doubt and everything. But in the end of the day, it becomes very rational. If it's going to be successful, a lot of times it becomes even more irrational, and then you got to abandon it. It's like Felipe walking the tightrope. It started out totally irrational, I'm sure, even for him in many ways, and I'm sure he passed through many portals where he was like, "Oh, this is irrational." But as he got closer to the day, he became tired and it became more rational. But by the time he walked on that tightrope, it was totally rational. Okay, there's no other way to think of it. But so that's I'll be talking about that more in future. But in terms of the dust and its significance and the dust studies, on the day when I was there close to Building 7, before it came down, and I collected dust samples. And at that moment, in the disbelief that I had of this dust that was so far away from the building, just 6 inches deep, how could those buildings be described on the floor that way? And so you pick up the dust and you hold it in your hand, and it's warm and it's hot. It's not even just warm, it's hot. And this is at 4 p.m. in the afternoon. This isn't at 12 o'clock even. This is at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, and it's still warm and almost hot. And I said to myself, and smelled like the Dickens, as my parents might say, it's the older generation, and just unbelievable smell. Lasted in that dust for me for 8 years. It's gone now. The smell still got some very eerie characteristics, but the smell's gone. But I said to myself at that moment, I said, here's the answer, Ross. The government scientists will find the answer right here. And that's why I took the dust samples. I said, this is where the answer is going to be found. And, that's when I thought the government was going to look into it. Well, anyway, thank goodness Niels Harrit and Jones and other people, however they got involved and looked, because the government certainly didn't. They admitted that. They weren't going to look at the dust samples. Anyway, that's going to be, I think, very important. I'm glad to hear there's going to be a discussion about that with Mick. And okay, good night.
Thank you, Ross. Susie?
Hello.
Yep.
Hi, it's Susie. As far as activism goes, I've been visiting some of the forums. They've been coming up in my feed, and I'm just pumping out the Harvard Aerophysics Data System Citation and Abstract of Harrit's paper and the actual full paper for people to read. as well as I regret to say that I am, for now, dropping my project with regards to Howard Lutnick. I'm so overwhelmed. I just don't feel that I have the knowledge, the know-how, or any kind of cooperation that could help me through this by myself. So I am focusing. I've also thought about starting a Facebook page on a 9/11 technical page where engineers and architects or whoever, scientists, might come in and answer some questions that we have. Just start posing some questions and see if I can gather, something other than people that are, just puppeting the official story. Yeah, and that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Susie. I think I got it. Al, did I get you? Anything for the group?
No, but I don't have much to offer other than to reiterate that I'm with Jerry on dues, and so I agree with everything he had to say. Anyway, and thank you, everybody. It was very interesting, and we'll do another one. You next Sunday, right? Nothing in between there. Oh, one thing I didn't mention is on the Saturday meeting, I couldn't get in and I guess somebody had blocked, or Mick had blocked people from getting in after something happened, and it was unclear to me what that was.
Yeah, we had an infiltrator, at least 2 or 3, that came in and started saying the N-word over and over and over and making belligerent statements, and they got kicked, and at one point we just had to close the room.
Yeah, the problem was that they were taking on the name of someone who was already in the conference. So at one point you'd have like 2 Mike Cooks or 2 whoever was there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
2 Patty Casazas. So
this happened long back in the day on a tap call where they had these guys come in a basketball. Yes.
When they took over the drawing board.
Yeah. Terrible.
Yeah.
So you don't know who that was, huh?
Unfortunately, you can't figure that out.
We don't know, and that's why Mick had to block the door basically because there was no way of knowing who.
So next Saturday, make sure you get in early if you want to catch Richard, in case they have to lock down the room. 10 p.m. Eastern time. Again, you get to that 911room.com/Mick, and you'll get to the Zoom link. So at 5 o'clock, click on that link on that page, and it'll put you right in.
Even earlier, just to be on the safe side. Yeah.
Okay. One more thing, Jean, can you possibly put the chat in the show notes on Rumble, because there's so much information in there to grab.
I typically do, yes.
All right, thank you.
You're very welcome. And I do want to caution everybody, social media activism is fantastic, but be aware nowadays, the algorithms and the bots, you might be arguing this whole time with just an army of bots. You make a comment and they come back at you. I'm really trying to get back, now that the weather's getting warm, taking it back to the streets. Hopefully I can find some time on a Saturday that we can get down and start leafleting or whatnot, even just standing. If you're not comfortable with walking up to people,
universities,
just walk around with a sign. People are going to read the sign. Just passive activism is a fantastic method too. If you're not introverted enough, or if you're not extroverted enough to walk up and hand something to somebody. So Sandra, anything for the group?
Yeah, just a couple of things on the note of the bots. The oddest thing happened to me when Massey lost last week. I made a post, a very simple post, with an image that said, I don't even know what to say because I was really completely flattened by the loss. And on an average day, I'll get maybe a dozen reactions or something like that. I got well over 500 people, and
people
out of which 12 are maybe people I know and friends in my list, and everybody else I have no clue who they are. You can't even add them as a friend, so already they've locked their profile so that you can't. So it was the strangest thing, because you'd expect it with certain things. This seemed kind of innocuous, so I don't know what the point was. Unless the bots are just like watching what people are posting. So Yeah,
be aware of this because these bot farms are gonna basically show replies or make comments, and then it gives a perception to everybody else that, oh, this is the real view. And
this is the overwhelming majority.
that's how they're changing public opinion by these bot farms.
Yes, Sandra, I had the same thing happen to me on a post on David Wilcox's death, and I had over 1,500 likes, views, whatever they were.
Yeah.
And 216 people followed me after that. And I have no idea who those people are.
Wow. Okay. Well, maybe it was just a powerful post, but mine wasn't. I didn't
All right.
write any cages.
Oh, you got one more. Go ahead.
Well, I wanted to say, okay, I'll let Carl go.
All right, Carl, and then I go back to Sandra, and we're gone. Go ahead, Carl.
Gene, when the call first started, you asked me if I was mostly living inside the Beltway. I was curious what prompted you to ask that.
I thought you were, because you were at the Senate office building for Ron Johnson. I thought that's where you lived. I know where everybody kind of lives, so I was just trying to get your area.
Yeah, no, I have more often than not been living in Alexandria inside the Beltway, and I have made a few useful contacts by chance being a member of the Republicans' Capitol Hill Club. I actually sat across one table to the next to Jim Jordan. I actually handed Jim Jordan a USS Liberty ball cap and preached to him that there should be hearings on false flag terrorism, starting with testimony from the Liberty survivors.
I appreciate that you do that, because that's a lot of work for you to get from Virginia down into the DC and deal with all the traffic.
It's a 15-minute drive. It's easy.
Thank you for the effort. I greatly appreciate it. So, you were the last comment?
Well, a couple of last comments. First of all, I love hearing what anybody's doing. I really feel like we should be doing more of that. It's motivating, it inspires, it gives ideas. That's the whole point. We need to be doing stuff. And anyways, I just wish we could focus a little bit more on that. Craig, I think it's Eric Rossi, maybe, because that friend is Eric Rossi.
That might be.
He was down with us at Ground Zero. He was an early years activist for many years, and then he got heavily involved in the COVID activism. So I'm thinking it might be him, but anyways, I could be wrong.
I think you're probably right. I think it was maybe a typo in the email, and I
could easily be, yeah, for sure. The other thing I wanted to say was he totally forgot to announce, but we're not going to announce it now. I'm going to let it hang for a week.
Oh.
We had a confirmation for our 9/11 planning event, and I'm gonna hang on for another week. But so that kind of sucks. And finally,
oh wait, hang on. This is Eric Rossi with Deb Lee, RFK Jr., and Eric Rossi.
Yeah, there you go.
That's him. Thank you.
If that's him, yeah.
Oh,
if that's who you're having on. And the last thing I wanted to say was I saw a video today of a young guy, early 20s, in Great Britain, who on his podcast, I guess, goes into events that he's heard about, but doesn't really know what they're about. And it happened to be on 9/11, this one. And, he said he wasn't really taught about much of it in school. And he just goes through the footage that I guess someone else prepared for him and the news reports. And he's just basically, you're watching him in real time react to what he's seeing. And you just realize that they know nothing. And he's watching and he's freaking out over the plane hitting the first tower and like just the full impact of what it is. Because all he ever heard was, attacking New York City. And then he sees the second plane and he's like, I didn't even know there was a second plane. There was 2 planes. What the heck? So he's going through, and then he's watching the reports on the Pentagon, and he thinks that's like another area of New York. And anyways, he's just, you can see him processing the whole thing as he goes along. And it was just really powerful. And, it just reminds me again that we need to educate the younger people. They are totally open. They know that there was something that happened that day and it was a bad thing. But really, for them to be able to grasp the intensity of that day and everything that it changed after the fact, I think is something very critical to do. So yeah, I'm I'm big on going to universities and speaking to the young people. That's where it needs to go.
All right. I said at the beginning of the show I would wrap up with the Dropkick Murphys song about Wells Crothers, the man in the red bandana. Thank you guys for being here. Have a great evening, a great weekend.
Day.
Have a happy Memorial. Thank you for being here. Feel free to sign off.
And feel free to stay.
When a young child idolizes or emulates a role model or parent, he may sometimes take a trinket to serve an everlasting memory of what that human meant to the child. This trinket brings comfort and strength. It acts as the child's armor as it learns to face the hard realities of the cold, cold world. Survivor. They sing your praise and share your story. Survivor. They tell the tales of your glory. Survivor. Of selflessness and bravery. Survivor. He was a hero among many. Survivor. They sing your praise and share your story. Survivor. They tell the tales of your glory. Of selflessness and bravery in the face of this tragedy. Was a hero among many, and he wore the red bandana.
All right, everybody. Have a good evening. Let's talk next time.
Have a good week.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.